Welcome back, and thanks for being here. Before we start, tell me in the comments what kind of bedtime or interesting stories you enjoy the most. Now get cozy, breathe slowly, and let's unwind together with these relaxing stories. My boyfriend got mad at me for wearing Nike shorts after work and is now sleeping at his parents' house. I am a 25-year-old woman, and my boyfriend Eric is 34. We have been together a little over 2 years, and we live together in a small apartment in a suburb outside a mid-sized city in the US. Until this week, I genuinely thought we were solid. We have disagreements like any couple, but nothing that ever made me think he would just walk out and refuse to come home. I work as a receptionist and office assistant at a medical billing company. It is not glamorous, and it is not physically demanding, but it is mentally exhausting. I sit all day answering phones, dealing with angry people who think I personally invented their copay, and fixing mistakes that were not mine to begin with. I usually dress business casual at work. Slacks, a blouse, flats. By the time my shift ends, I am counting down the seconds until I can change into something comfortable. On Tuesday, I stayed a little late because one of my coworkers called out and the phones were busy. When I finally clocked out, it was almost 6:30. I went into the bathroom, changed out of my work clothes, and put on a pair of black Nike shorts and an oversized gray hoodie. The shorts are not tiny. They cover my butt fully and are loose athletic shorts that hit mid-thigh. I have worn them to the grocery store, to walk the dog, and even around Eric's parents before without issue. I was tired, hungry, and just wanted to go home. I stopped at a gas station on the way to pick up milk, and when I got home, Eric was already there. He was sitting on the couch watching TV. I said hi, dropped my bag, and went to put the groceries away. Almost immediately, I felt his eyes on me. He muted the TV and said, "Are you seriously wearing that?" I thought he was joking and laughed and said, "Yeah, I changed at work because my pants were uncomfortable." He did not laugh back. He told me I should not be walking around outside dressed like that. I asked him what he meant, and he said those shorts were basically underwear and every guy could see everything. I was honestly confused. I told him they were just Nike shorts and that half the women at my gym wear the same thing. He said the gym is different and that leaving work and stopping places dressed like that was disrespectful to him. I told him I was not disrespecting him and that I was just trying to be comfortable. That is when the tone shifted. He told me I am too old to dress like a teenager and that at 25, I should know better. He said he would never let his wife dress like that in public. That comment hit me hard because we have talked about marriage, but he has also said he is not in a rush. Hearing him talk about what he would allow his wife to do made my stomach drop. I told him I am not his wife, and even if I were, I do not belong to him. He got angry at that and said I was twisting his words. He asked me why I need attention from other men. I told him I do not, and that wearing shorts does not equal asking for attention. He then brought up that there are guys at my work and that I probably changed so they could see me. That hurt and honestly made me angry. I have never given him a reason to doubt me. I go to work and come home. I do not flirt, and I barely socialize because I am tired all the time. I asked him if he seriously thought I would do that, and he said he does not know anymore because my behavior has been changing. I asked him what behavior, and he said I have been more confident lately and dressing cuter. I did not know how to respond to that because I did not realize being confident was a bad thing. The argument kept escalating. He said as my boyfriend, he has a right to say when something makes him uncomfortable. I agreed with that, but said he does not get to control what I wear. He said if I respected him, I would not even want to dress like that. I told him if he respected me, he would not accuse me of trying to attract other men over a pair of shorts. At some point, he stood up and said he cannot be in a relationship where his boundaries are ignored. I told him that boundaries are about his behavior, not mine. That only made him angrier. He said I am being immature and selfish and that he needs space to think about whether this relationship is worth it. He went into the bedroom, grabbed a duffel bag, and started throwing clothes into it. I asked him if he was really leaving over this. He said he is not leaving over shorts, but over my attitude. I started crying at that point because the whole thing felt unreal. We were arguing about Nike shorts, and suddenly he was packing a bag. Before he left, he told me he was going to stay at his parents' house for a few days. His parents live about 40 minutes away. He said he hopes I use this time to think about what kind of woman I want to be. That sentence has been replaying in my head nonstop. After he left, I sat on the couch for a long time just staring at the wall. I felt embarrassed, confused, and weirdly ashamed even though I know logically I did nothing wrong. I kept replaying the day and wondering if I missed something or if I could have handled it differently. The next morning I texted him and asked if we could talk. He replied hours later and said he is still upset and needs more time. I asked him if he is seriously reconsidering our relationship over this, and he said it is not just this, but this opened his eyes. That terrified me because I do not know what else he thinks he has opened his eyes to. I talked to my friend Melissa about it, and she was immediately alarmed. She said it sounds controlling and that the age gap might be showing more than I realized. I have never really thought about our age difference as an issue before. Eric has always been more established. He owns his car outright and has a better paying job. I am still figuring things out. I used to see that as him being stable. Now I am wondering if he sees me as something he can shape into what he wants. I keep thinking about the way he said he would never let his wife dress like that. I keep thinking about how quickly he jumped to accusing me of wanting attention. I also keep thinking about how fast he packed a bag instead of trying to resolve it. We have lived together for over a year, and he left like it was nothing. I am sitting here alone in our apartment, wearing sweatpants and an old t-shirt, and I feel like I am walking on eggshells, even though he is not here. I do not know if he expects an apology or a promise or what. I also do not know if I should even give one. Part of me misses him and wants things to go back to normal. Another part of me feels like something important cracked and I cannot ignore it. I have not told my parents yet because I do not know how to explain that my boyfriend left because he did not like my shorts. I feel stupid even typing that out. At the same time, it feels like it was never really about the shorts at all. I am trying to decide what to do next. Do I wait for him to cool down and come back? Do I stand my ground and risk losing the relationship? Do I confront him about how controlling this felt? I genuinely do not know, and the silence from him is making it worse. All I know is that I never thought a simple change of clothes after work would make me question my entire relationship. Stories number 2. My dad wants me at his wedding to the woman he cheated on my mom with, and I feel sick even thinking about it. I never thought I would be the kind of person who brings family drama to Reddit, but here I am because I do not know what is normal anymore, and everyone around me keeps telling me different versions of the truth. I am writing this from my own perspective, and I am honestly just trying to get this off my chest and maybe get some clarity. My parents were married for 23 years. Growing up, I thought we were a normal family. Not perfect, but solid. My mom, Linda, was the steady one. She packed lunches, remembered birthdays, showed up to every school event even when she worked double shifts. My dad, Robert, was more distant, but I still loved him. He worked a lot, traveled for work, and when he was home, he was usually tired or distracted. I did not question it because that was just how he was. About 3 years ago, everything exploded. I was home from college for a break when my mom sat me down at the kitchen table. She looked like she had not slept in days. Her hands were shaking, and she kept twisting her wedding ring around her finger like she did when she was nervous. She told me my dad had been having an affair. Not a one-time mistake, not something short. It had been going on for over 2 years. The woman was someone he worked with. Her name is Karen. I remember that name clearly because it still makes my stomach twist. She knew he was married. She had met my mom at a company picnic once. She had smiled at us and told me I looked just like my dad. All of that played back in my head after my mom told me the truth, and it made me feel stupid for ever smiling back. When my mom confronted my dad, he did not deny it. He did not cry. He did not beg. He said he had been unhappy for a long time, and that Karen understood him in a way my mom did not anymore. Those words cut deeper than I think he realizes. My mom tried counseling. She tried to save the marriage. My dad moved out within a month. The divorce was ugly. Not screaming matches, but a quiet kind of ugly that eats at you. My mom lost weight. She cried in the shower, so I would not hear her. I heard her anyway. My dad started acting like the victim. He told me he never meant to hurt anyone, and that sometimes adults grow apart. He kept asking me to be understanding. I tried. I really did. I kept a relationship with him because he is still my dad. We met for coffee sometimes. We talked about school and work and safe topics. I avoided anything about his personal life because just thinking about Karen made me angry. He eventually told me he was serious about her and wanted me to meet her. I said I was not ready. He said he understood. Fast forward to 6 months ago. My dad called me sounding excited. He told me he was engaged. I already knew who it was before he said her name. He said Karen had said yes, and they were planning a small wedding. Then he said the words that knocked the air out of me. He said it would mean the world to him if I came. I did not answer right away. I told him I needed time to think. Since that phone call, I feel like I am being pulled apart from every direction. My dad keeps texting me about dates and locations like my attendance is a given. Karen sent me a message on social media saying she hopes we can start fresh and that family is important to her. That message made me so angry I had to put my phone down. My mom has not said much. She told me she would support whatever decision I make, but I can see the hurt in her eyes when the topic comes up. She would never ask me to choose, but I know going to that wedding would feel like a betrayal to her. This is the woman who held me while I cried when the divorce was finalized. This is the woman who picked up the pieces when my dad walked away. Some people tell me I should go because he is my dad and life is short. My Aunt Susan says holding on to anger will only poison me. My cousin Mark told me that skipping the wedding will ruin my relationship with my dad forever. My friend Emily says I do not owe anyone my presence if it makes me feel awful. Every opinion feels loud, and none of them make the decision easier. What hurts the most is how my dad talks about it. He acts like this wedding is a fresh start that everyone should be happy about. He says he hopes one day I will see that he followed his heart. He keeps reminding me that he and my mom are divorced, so there is nothing wrong with him marrying Karen now. Technically, he is right. Emotionally, it feels wrong on every level. I keep replaying memories from my childhood and wondering which ones were lies. I wonder how many nights he came home late because he was with her. I wonder if my mom ever sensed it before she had proof. I wonder how someone can hurt their family so deeply and then ask them to celebrate the outcome. I am also scared of what saying no will mean. I am scared my dad will see it as me choosing my mom over him. I am scared he will pull away completely. I am scared of being painted as bitter or immature. At the same time, I am scared that if I go, I will spend the entire day feeling sick and resentful and angry. I am scared I will look at Karen in a white dress and remember my mom crying at that same kitchen table. I have tried to imagine myself there, sitting in a chair, watching my dad promise forever to the woman who helped destroy my parents' marriage, smiling for pictures, pretending everything is fine. Every time I picture it, my chest feels tight. That feels like my answer, but saying it out loud feels like lighting a match. I told my dad recently that I am leaning toward not going. He went quiet on the phone. Then he said he was disappointed and that he hoped I would grow to understand adult relationships one day. That sentence made me feel small and angry at the same time. I am not a child. I understand enough to know that cheating is a choice. Now the wedding is getting closer and the pressure is increasing. I feel like no matter what I do, someone will be hurt and I will be blamed. I just want to know if it is wrong to protect myself and my mom from more pain. I want to know if refusing to attend makes me unforgiving or if it just means I have boundaries. I never imagined being in this position. I never imagined having to decide whether to show up for a moment that exists because of someone else's betrayal. I'm exhausted from carrying this, and I do not know what the right answer is anymore. Update. My dad wants me at his wedding to the woman he cheated on my mom with, and I feel sick even thinking about it. A lot has happened since I first wrote this, and I honestly did not expect things to escalate the way they did. I thought I would just quietly decline the invitation and deal with the fallout privately, but nothing about my family ever stays quiet for long. After I posted, I sat on my feelings for a few days. My dad kept sending texts about hotel blocks and seating like my silence was just a delay and not a decision. Karen sent another message saying she hoped I was doing well and that she was excited to build a relationship with me. That message pushed me over the edge. I realized I was more angry about how everything was being brushed aside than I was about the wedding itself. I finally called my dad and told him I needed to talk seriously. I told him I loved him, but I could not attend the wedding. I tried to explain calmly. I said that watching him marry the woman he cheated with would be too painful and that I was not ready to celebrate something that started by hurting my mom and our family. I told him this was about my boundaries and not about punishing him. He did not take it well. He said he felt judged. He said I was refusing to move on and that I was letting my mom's pain dictate my life. That comment made me snap. I told him my mom's pain mattered because his actions caused it. I told him cheating was not an accident or a misunderstanding. It was a series of choices. There was a long silence, and then he said, if I did not come, it would change how he saw our relationship. That hurt more than I expected. It felt like a threat wrapped in disappointment. I ended the call shaking. Later that night, he sent a message saying he hoped I would reconsider and that family should show up even when things are uncomfortable. Word spread fast. My Aunt Susan called me and said my dad was devastated. She told me I would regret missing such an important moment and that holding on to resentment would only hurt me in the long run. My cousin Mark texted saying my dad felt abandoned. At the same time, my mom never once told me what to do. She just asked if I was okay and reminded me she loved me. A few days after that, something happened that changed how I saw everything. Karen called me directly. I almost did not answer, but I did. She said she wanted to clear the air and hoped we could talk like adults. She told me she knew things started badly, but that people fall in love in complicated ways. She said my dad had been unhappy for years and that their relationship was inevitable. I told her calmly that nothing about cheating was inevitable. I told her I was not comfortable pretending we were a happy blended family when I was still dealing with the damage. She started crying and said she felt like she was always going to be punished for falling in love. I did not yell. I just told her that my feelings were not an attack and that I was allowed to opt out of situations that hurt me. After that call, I felt strangely lighter. For the first time, I stopped trying to manage everyone else's emotions. I stopped replying to group texts about the wedding. I sent my dad one final message saying my decision was final and that I hoped one day we could rebuild our relationship outside of this event. The wedding happened last weekend. I did not go. I spent that day with my mom. We went for a long walk, had lunch, and watched old movies at home. She never said thank you, but I could tell she felt supported. That night, my dad posted photos online. Smiling photos. Happy captions about new beginnings. I muted him for now because I am not ready to see that. Since then, my dad has barely contacted me. When he does, the messages are short and polite. It hurts, but it also confirms something I needed to accept. His priority right now is his new life, not repairing the old one. That realization is painful, but also clarifying. I still love my dad. That has not changed. But I no longer feel guilty for choosing my own emotional well-being. I am starting to understand that forgiveness and access are not the same thing. I can work toward peace without forcing myself into situations that reopen wounds. I do not know what the future looks like with him. Maybe things will soften with time. Maybe they will not. What I do know is that saying no was the first decision I have made in this situation that felt honest. Stories number 3. My marriage is ending because I cannot live like this anymore. I am a 34-year-old guy named Daniel living in Ohio, and I never thought I would be the kind of person considering divorce over something that sounds so small when you say it out loud. My wife Emily is 33, and we have been married for 6 years together for 9. I love her in many ways, and that is what makes this hurt so much. This is not about cheating money or abuse. This is about sleep or the complete lack of it, and how it has slowly destroyed my mental health, my job performance, and honestly, my ability to feel like myself. Emily has had sleep problems for as long as I have known her. When we were dating, it seemed manageable. She snored sometimes, thrashed around, and needed the TV on to fall asleep. Back then, I was younger, working fewer hours, and I figured it was just one of those relationship compromises people talk about. After we got married and moved into our house, things escalated. Emily developed what doctors later called severe insomnia, combined with night terrors and restless leg syndrome. I am not a doctor, but I can tell you what it looks like from the other side of the bed. Most nights, she cannot fall asleep until 2 or 3 in the morning. When she does fall asleep, she jerks, kicks, or suddenly sits up, gasping like she is drowning. She talks in her sleep, sometimes screams. There have been nights where she has slapped me or kneed me in the ribs, completely unconscious of what she was doing. I started sleeping on edge literally and mentally. I would lie there tense, waiting for the next movement. The TV had to stay on all night because silence made her anxious. The light from it gave me migraines. Earplugs did nothing. White noise did nothing. I was averaging 3 to 4 hours of broken sleep a night. I work as a project manager for a logistics company, and my job requires focus and clear thinking. After about a year of this, I started making mistakes. I missed deadlines, forgot meetings, and once sent a report to the wrong client. My boss, Mark, pulled me aside and asked if everything was okay. I told him vaguely that I was having sleep issues at home. He suggested I take some time off. Time off did not fix it because the problem was waiting for me every night. I begged Emily to see doctors, and she did. She saw a primary care physician, then a neurologist, then a sleep specialist. They prescribed medications like Ambien and later something stronger. Some helped her fall asleep, but made the night terrors worse. Others knocked her out, but left her groggy, angry, and depressed during the day. She tried therapy with a woman named Karen who focused on anxiety and trauma. Emily did have a rough childhood, and I do not dismiss that. I supported her through all of this. I drove her to appointments, picked up prescriptions, and paid thousands out of pocket. What I asked for in return was simple space to sleep. I suggested separate bedrooms. The house has a guest room. Emily took this as a personal rejection. She cried and said married couples are supposed to sleep together, and that I was abandoning her when she was vulnerable. I tried sleeping on the couch, but my back started hurting, and she would still come out at night, panicking if she woke up alone. I suggested a sleep divorce, which is apparently a real thing. She accused me of planning an actual divorce. Things came to a head last winter. I had a huge presentation the next morning and had barely slept all week. That night, Emily had one of her worst episodes. She screamed for almost a full minute, flailing, and knocked a glass of water onto my laptop, which was on the nightstand. It fried the keyboard. I lost my work files. I snapped. I yelled. I said I cannot do this anymore. I said I feel like I am dying slowly. She looked at me like I had betrayed her and locked herself in the bathroom crying. The next day, I botched the presentation. Mark put me on a performance improvement plan. I came home and told Emily I was sleeping in the guest room whether she liked it or not. She said if I did, that it would mean our marriage was over. I did it anyway. For the first time in years, I slept 6 hours straight. I woke up feeling human. I also woke up to 20 missed calls and texts from Emily, accusing me of not loving her and threatening to call her sister Jessica to come get her. We tried couples counseling with a guy named Robert. In those sessions, Emily framed the issue as me being unsupportive and cold. When I talked about my exhaustion, Robert suggested compromise. He suggested scheduled nights together and nights apart. Emily said that made her feel like a burden. Every solution circled back to her feelings, while mine were treated like inconveniences. I started to resent her. I hated that word, but it is true. I dreaded nighttime. I stayed late at work. I would sit in my car in the driveway, scrolling on my phone, because I did not want to go inside. That scared me. I talked to my friend Lucas, who is divorced. He said something that stuck with me. He said you are allowed to leave situations that are destroying you even if no one is technically at fault. Last month I went to see a lawyer named Susan just to understand my options. This was not a threat or an ultimatum. I needed information. Emily found the business card in my jacket and exploded. She accused me of planning behind her back. She said I was abandoning her like everyone else in her life. I told her I am not her enemy, but I cannot sacrifice my health forever. She told me if I loved her, I would endure it. I have lost weight. I have developed high blood pressure. My doctor asked about stress and sleep, and I almost laughed. I am a shell of the person I was. I still love Emily, but love is not enough when you are drowning. I am now seriously considering filing for divorce, not because I want to hurt her, but because I need to survive. I know this sounds petty compared to other marital issues. I know she did not choose her condition. I know she is suffering too. But I am suffering in silence, and no one seems to care, because I am the stable one. I am the supportive husband. I am supposed to be strong. So here I am, asking strangers, because I do not trust my own judgment anymore. Am I wrong for wanting to end my marriage over sleep, or is it reasonable to admit that this is something I cannot live with for the rest of my life? Update. My marriage is ending because I cannot live like this anymore. It has been a little over 2 months since I wrote my original post, and I honestly did not expect the level of response it got. I read almost every comment, even the harsh ones, and I want to explain what has happened since then. Because a lot has changed, and also somehow nothing has changed at all. After I posted, I showed the thread to my therapist, whose name is Michael. I had started seeing him shortly before writing, because my doctor basically told me if I did not get my stress under control, my body was going to force me to. Michael told me something that stuck with me. He said lack of sleep is considered a form of torture for a reason, and that framing my problem as small or selfish was something I had been conditioned to do over time. Hearing a professional say that made me feel less crazy. Emily and I had another massive argument about a week after the post. She had read some of the replies because she knew I posted, but not where. She said the internet poisoned my mind against her. I told her the internet just said out loud what I was too scared to. That conversation went badly fast. She accused me of choosing strangers over my wife. I told her I chose my sanity. She moved into the guest room instead of me, which was honestly not what I expected. She said if sleeping apart was what I wanted, then she would be the one to leave the bed, so I could not say she abandoned me. That felt manipulative, but I was too tired to fight it. The first few nights were quiet and weird. I slept better, but I could hear her crying through the wall. That messed with my head in a different way. About 2 weeks later, she had a breakdown. Her sister Jessica showed up unannounced and basically staged an intervention. They sat me down and told me Emily felt unsafe and unloved. Jessica asked me how I would feel if roles were reversed. I told her if roles were reversed, I would insist my partner sleep in peace because I would not want to destroy someone I love. That did not go over well. Jessica called me cold and said marriage means sacrifice. I asked her how much sleep she was willing to lose for 6 straight years. She did not answer. Emily agreed to see a new sleep specialist named Dr. Patel after multiple people suggested getting a second opinion. This doctor was more blunt than the others. He told Emily that while her conditions were real, the way they were being managed was not working, and that co-sleeping was likely making everything worse for both of us. He suggested long-term, separate sleeping arrangements and more intensive treatment, including a monitored sleep clinic stay. Emily nodded during the appointment, but cried the entire drive home. When we got home, she told me she felt like everyone was siding against her, including doctors now. She said separate bedrooms felt like a step toward divorce, and that she could not live in a marriage that felt like roommates. I told her I could not live in a marriage that felt like a war zone every night. That was the first time I said out loud that I was considering divorce as a real possibility, not just a threat. She begged me not to. She promised she would try harder, whatever that meant. I told her trying harder was not the issue, and that love does not cure neurological disorders. She asked me if I still loved her. I said yes, but that I did not know if love was enough anymore. That broke her. The next week, she went to stay with her parents in Indiana. The house felt empty, but also calm. I slept 8 hours for the first time in years. I cried when I woke up because I did not realize how exhausted I truly was until I was not. My blood pressure dropped. My headache stopped. Mark at work noticed the difference and told me whatever I was doing to keep doing it. Emily and I talked on the phone every few days. The conversations were heavy, but more honest than they had been in a long time. She admitted she had built her entire sense of security around me being there at night, and that the idea of sleeping alone triggered deep panic from childhood. I told her I understood, but that I could not be her only coping mechanism. She said she felt like she was being punished for being sick. I told her I felt like I was being punished for being healthy. Eventually, she asked if I wanted to try a trial separation, not legally, just space. I agreed. She is still at her parents' house. We split finances temporarily. I moved my things into the guest room officially and turned the master bedroom into a neutral space. It sounds stupid, but it helped. I went back to see the lawyer Susan just to prepare. I have not filed anything. Emily knows this and surprisingly appreciated the honesty. She said the uncertainty was worse than the truth. We are both in individual therapy now. We are not doing couples counseling at the moment because every session turned into blame disguised as compromise. I do not know how this will end. Some days I think we might find a way to redefine our marriage in a healthier way. Other days I feel like I am already grieving something that is gone. What I do know is that I am no longer willing to disappear to keep someone else comfortable. If we divorce, it will not be because of sleep alone. It will be because we could not adapt without hurting each other. If we stay together, it will only be if we both accept that love does not always look the way we imagined. Stories number 4. My boyfriend thinks it is inappropriate that I walk from the bathroom to the bedroom in a towel while living with his family. I never thought I would be posting something like this, but I am genuinely confused and honestly embarrassed and frustrated. I am in my mid-20s and I have been dating my boyfriend Aaron for a little over 2 years. For the past 6 months, we have been living with his family in their suburban house in the Midwest. His parents, Mark and Linda, offered because rent is expensive and they have the space. They also have 2 other kids still at home, his younger brother Tyler, who is in college, and his teenage sister Emily. Everyone is very American nuclear family vibes. Dinner together most nights, sports on TV, polite conversations, nothing extreme. When we first moved in, we talked about boundaries and expectations. I made it clear I wanted to be respectful because it is their house and not mine. I help with chores, I cook sometimes, I keep to our room. I grew up in a pretty relaxed household myself. Walking around in pajamas, a towel after a shower, things like that were normal. There was no sexualization of bodies, it was just practical. I did not think much of it when I continued the same habits here. The bathroom we use is down the hall from our bedroom. After I shower, I usually wrap myself in a full-size bath towel that covers me from chest to mid-thigh. I walk maybe 10 steps to the bedroom and get dressed. The door is usually open or closed, depending on the day. I am not lingering in the hallway. I am not talking to anyone. I am not making a show of it. To me, it is just normal. About a month ago, Aaron sat me down and told me he finds it weird and uncomfortable that I do this. He said his family might feel awkward seeing me in a towel. I was honestly surprised because nobody had ever said anything to me. His mom Linda chats with me like usual. His dad Mark is polite as always. His siblings act the same. I asked him if someone complained and he said no, but that it just is not appropriate in his opinion. At first I laughed because I thought he was joking. When I realized he was serious, I asked him to explain. He said that in his family, walking around in a towel is something you only do if you live alone or with just your partner. He said that even though it is brief, it still makes him uncomfortable knowing his dad or brother could see me like that. That word "see me like that" really stuck with me because it made it sound sexual when it absolutely is not to me. I told him I am fully covered and that it is no different than wearing a strapless dress or a romper. He disagreed and said towels are different. He asked me to start bringing clothes into the bathroom and changing there. I told him the bathroom is small and humid and I do not like putting clothes on in there. I also told him I do not think I should have to change a harmless habit when no one else has expressed an issue. This is where things started to get tense. He accused me of being disrespectful to his family. That hurt because I have been bending over backwards to be respectful. I asked him why he never mentioned it earlier, and he said it has always bothered him, but he did not know how to bring it up. That made me feel blindsided. Since then, I have been hyper aware of everything I do in that house. If I hear footsteps, I wait longer in the bathroom. Sometimes I feel trapped, holding a towel around myself, waiting until the coast is clear. It makes me anxious in a place that is supposed to feel like home for now. I started to resent him for making me feel ashamed of my body in such a subtle but constant way. Last week, things came to a head. I got out of the shower and wrapped my towel like usual. I opened the door and Aaron was standing there, clearly waiting. He told me again that he does not want me walking in the hallway like that. I snapped and asked him why he was policing my body. He told me I was overreacting and that it is about respect, not control. We argued quietly but intensely. I told him if his parents had an issue, they could talk to me directly like adults. He said that would be embarrassing for them. I said what is more embarrassing is being treated like I am doing something indecent when I am not. He told me to just compromise and change in the bathroom. I asked him why the compromise always seems to be me giving in. After that argument, he was distant for days. His mom Linda asked me if everything was okay because she could sense the tension. I did not know what to say, so I just smiled and said we were fine. That made me feel even worse because now I am carrying this weird secret discomfort around people who have been nothing but kind to me. I started to wonder if this is about more than a towel. Is it about control? Is it about his own insecurities? Is it about how he was raised? I do not want to disrespect his family, but I also do not want to feel ashamed or monitored. I am not flashing anyone. I am not naked. I am simply existing. What makes this harder is that if I were wearing shorts and a tank top, no one would bat an eye even if more skin was showing. The towel somehow changes the meaning in his mind. I asked him if he thinks his brother or dad would sexualize me, and he got defensive and said that is not what he meant. But then, what does he mean? I have lived with roommates before, and nobody ever cared. I have walked to the laundry room in a towel at dorms. This feels like such a small thing, but it has turned into a symbol of something bigger. It feels like he is more concerned with appearances and traditional ideas than with my comfort. I am now at a point where I dread showering because I know it will lead to stress. I have started changing in the bathroom sometimes just to avoid conflict, but every time I do it, I feel a little resentful. Other times, I still walk to the bedroom because I do not want to give up a boundary that feels reasonable to me. I do not know if I am being stubborn or if he is being controlling. I do not know if this is a cultural difference within the same country or just a mismatch in values. I care about him a lot, and up until now, we have communicated well. This issue has revealed a side of him I do not love. I keep thinking about the future. If we get our own place, will there be other rules about how I dress or act? If we have kids, will he shame them too? I do not want to jump to conclusions, but I also do not want to ignore red flags if that is what this is. Right now, I feel stuck living in someone else's house, where my body feels like a problem. I want to resolve this, but I do not know how, without feeling like I am betraying myself or causing unnecessary drama in his family. I wish he had trusted me enough to let me be comfortable or at least talk to me without making me feel wrong. I am posting here because I need outside perspective. I genuinely do not know if I am missing something obvious or if this is as unreasonable as it feels to me. Stories number 5. My sister ignored my daughter's babysitting boundary and brushed off how uncomfortable it made her. I am writing this because I am still trying to figure out if I overreacted or if I am right to be upset. This has been sitting heavy with me for weeks, and I need outside perspective. I am a mom to a teenage daughter named Emily. She is responsible, cautious, and very clear about her boundaries. One of those boundaries is that she does not feel comfortable babysitting young boys by herself, especially in homes she does not know well. This is something we have talked about as a family, and I fully support her. I would rather her say no than feel pressured into a situation that makes her uneasy. My sister Rachel has 2 kids. Her oldest is a girl named Lily, and her youngest is a boy named Noah. I love my niece and nephew, but Rachel and I have very different parenting styles. She tends to brush things off and believes kids should just deal with discomfort because that is how they learn. I am the opposite. I believe kids should be listened to, especially when they clearly communicate a boundary. A few months ago, Rachel asked if Emily could babysit while she and her husband Mark went to a work event. Emily immediately asked who would be home and how long. When she found out it would just be her and Noah for most of the evening, she told me privately that she did not feel comfortable. She said Noah had started getting rough during play and sometimes ignored directions. She also said she did not like being alone with a younger boy who did not listen to her. I told her she did not have to do it and that I would handle it. I called Rachel and explained that Emily was not comfortable babysitting Noah alone. I was calm and clear. I did not accuse her of anything. I just said Emily was happy to help in other ways, like babysitting Lily or helping when another adult was around. But this specific situation was a no. Rachel sighed and said Emily was being dramatic. She said Noah was just a kid and that Emily needed to toughen up. I repeated that this was Emily's boundary and that we were sticking to it. Rachel dropped it, or so I thought. A few weeks later, there was a family gathering at my parents' house. I arrived a bit late because of work. When I walked in, I noticed Emily sitting on the couch, looking stiff and uncomfortable. Noah was next to her, and Rachel was nowhere in sight. I asked Emily quietly what was going on. She told me Rachel had asked her to watch Noah while she ran to the store and said it would only be a few minutes. Emily said she felt put on the spot in front of everyone and did not feel like she could say no without causing a scene. I was angry but tried to keep it together. I found Rachel in the kitchen and asked her why she left Emily alone with Noah after we had already discussed this. Rachel laughed and said it was not a big deal. She said I was being overprotective and that Emily needed to get used to babysitting if she wanted to be responsible. She also said she was only gone for 20 minutes, which later turned out to be almost an hour. When Rachel came back, Emily looked relieved but also shaken. On the drive home, Emily told me Noah had ignored her when she told him to stop jumping on the furniture. He had also gone into a bedroom and shut the door, which made her panic because she did not know what he was doing. Nothing terrible happened, but the point is that she felt scared and unsupported. I texted Rachel later that night and told her this was not okay. I said she crossed a clear boundary and put Emily in a situation she explicitly said she was uncomfortable with. Rachel replied that Emily was exaggerating and that I was filling her head with fear. She said if Emily could not handle watching a child for a short time, that was a failure on my part as a parent. That message hurt more than I expected. I called my mom, Karen, to talk it through. Karen said she understood why I was upset, but also said Rachel probably did not mean any harm. She suggested I let it go to keep the peace. My dad, Tom, said Rachel should have respected Emily's boundary, but also warned me that pushing this too hard could cause long-term family tension. A week later, Rachel invited us over for dinner. Emily did not want to go, but she agreed after I promised I would not leave her alone. During dinner, Rachel made a comment about how kids these days are too sensitive. She looked directly at Emily when she said it. Emily went quiet and pushed food around her plate. I felt my chest tighten. I told Rachel that comments like that were unnecessary and that Emily had done nothing wrong. Rachel rolled her eyes and said I was proving her point. After that night, I told Rachel that Emily would not be babysitting at all anymore, even in group settings, until trust was rebuilt. Rachel accused me of punishing her kids and said I was turning Emily against family. She also told other relatives that I was being controlling and dramatic. I started getting messages from an aunt named Susan and a cousin named Brian saying I should just let kids be kids and stop making everything about feelings. Emily asked me if this was her fault. That broke my heart. I told her over and over that it was not. I told her she did the right thing by speaking up and that I was proud of her. Still, I can tell she feels awkward around Rachel now. Family events feel tense. Conversations stop when I walk into a room. I hate that my daughter is caught in the middle of adult drama, but I also refuse to teach her that her discomfort does not matter. I keep replaying everything in my head. I wonder if I should have handled the initial conversation differently. I wonder if I should have made a bigger scene at my parents' house instead of trying to be polite. At the same time, I cannot shake the feeling that if I let this slide, I would be teaching Emily that people can ignore her boundaries without consequences. So here I am, stuck between wanting peace in my family and wanting to protect my child. I am upset that my sister not only ignored a clear boundary, but also minimized my daughter's discomfort afterward. I do not feel like I am asking for too much by expecting basic respect. I just do not know how to move forward without either blowing up the family or letting my daughter down. Update: my sister ignored my daughter's babysitting boundary and brushed off how uncomfortable it made her. A lot has happened since I first wrote this, and I wanted to share how things unfolded because it has been emotionally exhausting. After the tension at the last family dinner, I decided I could not keep pretending everything was fine. Emily was getting quieter and more anxious whenever Rachel's name came up, and that was my biggest sign that this was not something to sweep under the rug. I asked Rachel if we could talk one-on-one without kids or other relatives around. She agreed, but I could tell from her tone that she thought this was unnecessary. We met at a coffee shop near her house. I went in with the goal of staying calm and focused on Emily rather than past arguments. I told her again that the issue was not about Noah being a bad kid. It was about Emily clearly saying she was uncomfortable and that boundary being ignored. I also told her how shaken Emily was afterward and how she asked me if it was her fault. Rachel immediately got defensive. She said Emily was manipulating the situation to avoid responsibility. She said when she was Emily's age, she babysat anyone and everyone without complaint. I told her that times are different and kids are encouraged to speak up now. I also said even if Rachel disagreed with the boundary, it was still my job as a parent to enforce it. That is when the conversation took a turn. Rachel said something that really stunned me. She said she did not take Emily's discomfort seriously because nothing bad actually happened. She said if something had happened, then it would be a problem. Hearing that made my stomach drop. I told her that mindset was exactly why I was so upset. I said waiting for something bad to happen before respecting a boundary is not acceptable to me. Rachel accused me of implying that her son was dangerous. I clarified again that this was not about Noah as a person. It was about Emily feeling overwhelmed and unsafe being put in charge without consent. She shook her head and said I was raising Emily to be fearful of the world. At that point, I realized we were not going to agree on values. After that conversation, I set firmer boundaries. I told Rachel that Emily would not be left alone with her kids, even briefly, and that if that could not be respected, we would be limiting visits. Rachel said I was being extreme and said she would not tiptoe around my rules. I told her that was her choice, but my responsibility was to my daughter. The fallout was immediate. My mom, Karen, called me a few days later and said Rachel was very upset and felt attacked. Karen asked if I could compromise for the sake of family harmony. I told her I loved her, but this was not something I could compromise on. I explained again what Emily experienced and how it affected her. This time, Karen was quieter. She admitted she had not realized how scared Emily felt that day. A week later, something unexpected happened. My dad, Tom, asked to come over alone. He told me he had talked to Emily himself and was surprised by how clearly she explained her feelings. He said it made him rethink the situation. He admitted that when he first heard about it, he thought it was just sibling drama, but hearing it directly from Emily changed his perspective. That conversation gave me a small sense of relief. Emily has been doing better since we stopped attending events where Rachel is present. She seems lighter, like a weight has been lifted. She told me she feels guilty sometimes for causing tension, but she also said she feels proud that she stood up for herself. Hearing that made every uncomfortable conversation worth it to me. As for Rachel, we are currently low contact. We still exchange brief messages about holidays and family logistics, but that is it. She has not apologized, and I am no longer waiting for one. I have accepted that she may never fully understand why this mattered so much to me. I have also accepted that protecting my daughter may mean having a more distant relationship with my sister. This whole situation forced me to confront how easily people dismiss kids' boundaries, especially when it is inconvenient. It also showed Emily that I will back her even when it causes conflict. That is something I never want her to doubt. I still hope that one day Rachel will reflect and realize that respecting a boundary is not an attack. Until then, I am standing firm, even if it makes family gatherings smaller and quieter. Stories number 6. My wife keeps giving away the gifts I put real thought into, and I have decided I will not do that anymore. I am a 36-year-old man, and my wife Hannah is 34. We have been married for 7 years and together for almost 11. We live in the U.S., own a modest home, and from the outside our life probably looks calm and stable. No cheating, no big explosive fights, no dramatic scandals. What we do have is a slow-growing resentment that I have been trying to ignore for years, and I finally hit a breaking point. I have always been a thoughtful gift giver. I do not mean expensive for the sake of expensive. I mean I pay attention. If someone mentioned something in passing months earlier, I remember it. I notice what people admire, what they linger on, what they complain they never buy for themselves. I actually enjoy the process of finding the right thing and imagining their reaction. It is how I show love. Hannah knows this about me. When we were dating, she used to tell people how good I was at gifts. She would show off what I got her and tell the story behind it. Somewhere along the way, that changed, and I am still not sure when or why. The first time it happened, I brushed it off. For our second anniversary after getting married, I gave her a leather tote bag. Not just any bag. I spent weeks looking. She had mentioned wanting something professional, but still stylish. I found a small US-based brand, read reviews, made sure it would fit her laptop, and even chose a color she always gravitated toward. She was excited when she opened it and thanked me and used it for about a month. Then one day I came home and noticed it was gone. I asked her where it was, and she casually said she gave it to her sister Lauren because Lauren needed a work bag more than she did. I was surprised, but did not want to seem selfish. I said okay, even though it stung. That bag was not cheap, and more importantly, it was chosen specifically for her. After that, it kept happening. For her birthday one year, I bought her a necklace from a local jeweler. Nothing flashy, just simple and elegant and very her. She wore it a handful of times, and then I stopped seeing it. When I asked, she said she lent it to her friend Megan for a wedding, and Megan loved it, so she told her to keep it. I asked if Megan paid her for it, and Hannah laughed and said no, it is just stuff. I tried to explain that it hurt my feelings. She told me I was overreacting, and that once a gift is given, it is no longer mine to have opinions about. I accepted that logic on the surface, but emotionally, it still felt wrong. It felt like she was giving away pieces of effort I had made for her. It was not just expensive things. One year, I made her a photo book. I spent nights scanning old pictures, writing captions, organizing memories from our early relationship to our wedding to trips we took. It was deeply personal. She cried when she opened it and told me it was the most thoughtful gift she had ever received. 6 months later, I could not find it. Turns out, she gave it to her cousin Emily, who was going through a divorce and needed cheering up. She said Emily loved our love story, and it gave her hope. I was honestly stunned. That was our story, our memories. I did not even know what to say. Every time I tried to bring it up, Hannah framed it like I was being controlling or materialistic. She said gifts are meant to bring joy, and if someone else needs it more, then that is a good thing. She said I should be proud that she is generous. I do think generosity is a good trait. I just do not think generosity should come at the cost of dismissing your partner's feelings. The final straw happened this past Christmas. I went all out. I know Christmas gifts are not supposed to be transactional, but I genuinely wanted to do something special. Hannah had been talking about wanting to get back into painting. She used to paint in college, but stopped when life got busy. I bought her a high-quality set of paints, brushes, canvases, and even set up a small corner in our spare room with good lighting and storage. I wrapped everything nicely and even included a handwritten note telling her how much I admired her creativity. She was thrilled. She hugged me and told me it meant the world to her. For a few weeks she painted occasionally and seemed happy. Then one weekend I noticed the supplies were gone. The entire setup was cleared out. When I asked her about it, she said she gave everything to her coworker Natalie, whose daughter was interested in art. She said the kid was really talented and deserved good supplies. I just stared at her. I asked why she did not ask me first. She said she did not think she needed permission. That night we had a real argument. I told her I felt invisible, that every time I put thought into something for her, it felt like she tossed it aside. She told me I was making gifts about myself, and that the intention should not matter once it leaves my hands. She said I should be happy that my gifts are being used instead of sitting around collecting dust. Something in me snapped a little. I told her I am done. Not done with the marriage, but done with thoughtful gifts. I said from now on, I will stick to gift cards or things she explicitly asks for, and only if she promises to keep them. She got very upset and accused me of punishing her. She said I was being petty and childish. I told her I am protecting myself. It hurts too much to see my effort repeatedly given away without a second thought. She said she feels like I am trying to control her generosity. I said no, I am choosing not to invest emotional energy into something that keeps getting dismissed. Since then, things have been tense. She told her mother about it, and her mother called me to say, Hannah has always been generous, and I knew that when I married her. I told her mother generosity is not the issue. Disregard is. Now I am sitting here wondering if I am actually in the wrong. I keep going back and forth. On one hand, once you give a gift, it is technically theirs. On the other hand, marriage is supposed to involve caring about how your actions affect your partner. I do not feel cared about in this specific area. I am not asking her to hoard things or never share. I just wanted her to value the intention behind what I give her, and at least talk to me before giving it away. At this point, I feel foolish for ever trying so hard. I have not changed my stance. I have already told her that for her upcoming birthday, I am just getting a card and a gift card. She rolled her eyes and said that proves her point. I feel like it proves mine. I do not know where this leaves us long term. It feels small when written out, but living with it for years has made it heavy. I never thought something as simple as gift giving would make me question how seen I really am in my own marriage. Update. My wife keeps giving away the gifts I put real thought into, and I have decided I will not do that anymore. I did not expect to be back so soon, but a lot has happened, and I feel like I need to get it out somewhere before I lose my mind. After I posted, I sat with the responses for a while. I did not show them to Hannah, but reading them made me realize I was not crazy for feeling the way I do. It gave me the confidence to actually push the conversation instead of backing down like I usually do. 2 days after my original post, Hannah came home from work in a decent mood, which felt rare lately. We made dinner together and things were polite but distant. After we ate, she asked if I was still mad about the gift thing. I told her I was not mad, but I was still hurt and nothing had really changed. She sighed like she was exhausted and said she felt like I was turning this into a much bigger issue than it needed to be. That was the moment I realized we were not talking about the same thing at all. I told her this was not about objects. It was about effort, consideration, and feeling like what I do for her matters. I told her every time she gives something away without even talking to me, it feels like she is saying my thoughtfulness is disposable. She immediately got defensive and said she never said that, and that I am projecting my own insecurities onto her generosity. I asked her to just listen without interrupting. That alone annoyed her. I told her about the bag, the necklace, the photo book, the art supplies. I explained how each one hurt in a different way, and how the photo book especially felt like a violation of something personal. She looked uncomfortable at that, and said she did not think I would care that much, because she thought of it as a positive thing since it helped someone else. I asked her why she never once asked me first, or even told me ahead of time. She said she did not think she needed to because they were hers, and she hates feeling like she has to check in with someone to be generous. I told her that in a marriage, checking in is not control, it is respect. Then she dropped something that honestly shocked me. She said sometimes she feels overwhelmed by the intensity of my gifts. She said they make her feel like she has to perform gratitude or like she owes me some emotional response. That hit me like a punch because I never intended that. I asked her why she never told me that before. She said because she thought it would hurt my feelings. I almost laughed at that because here we were anyway. I told her I would have much rather known that than slowly feel like an idiot for caring. She said giving the gifts away makes her feel lighter and less pressured, and that she likes seeing other people enjoy them without expectations attached. That hurt, but at least it was honest. Things got heated after that. She said my decision to stop giving thoughtful gifts feels like retaliation. I said, it is a boundary. She said boundaries should not be used to make your partner feel bad. I said neither should generosity. We went in circles for a while. At one point I asked her if she even values the way I show love. She went quiet for a long time and then said she appreciates it, but it is not how she naturally expresses love, and sometimes it feels like too much. That hurt more than anything else she said. I asked her why she married someone whose love language overwhelms her. She said she thought she could grow into it, or that I would tone it down over time. That answer sat heavy between us. It made me realize how long we have both been quietly hoping the other would change without actually saying it out loud. The conversation ended without a clean resolution. She asked if I was really serious about sticking to gift cards and minimal effort going forward. I said yes, at least for now. I told her I need time to detach my sense of worth from how she treats the things I give her. She said she feels like that makes the relationship colder. I told her pretending nothing is wrong is what made it cold in the first place. Since then, the house has been tense but calmer. No yelling, just a lot of space. She has not apologized, and neither have I. She did tell me she regrets giving the photo book away and said she did not think about it from my perspective. That was the closest thing to accountability I have gotten so far. Her birthday is next week. I already bought a card and a gift card like I said I would. Part of me feels guilty. another part of me feels strangely relieved. I am not spiraling over whether she will keep it or give it away. There is no emotional investment this time. I do not know what this means for our marriage long term. I am starting to see that this issue was just a symptom of something bigger, a disconnect in how we value effort, intention, and emotional labor. I love her, and I do believe she is a good person. But I am also realizing that feeling unseen for years does real damage. For now, we are still together and functioning. I suggested couples counseling, and she said she would think about it. That is where things stand. I do not feel like the villain anymore, but I also do not feel like the problem is solved. I just know I am done bleeding quietly over something that was never small to me. Stories number 7. My girlfriend wants a proposal before I join the military, and I feel trapped by the timing. I never thought I would be writing something like this, but I feel like I am standing at a crossroads, and everyone keeps telling me there is only one correct direction. I am hoping getting this out will help me sort through the guilt and pressure that has been building for months. I am 24, and I have been with my girlfriend Ashley for almost 4 years. We met during our sophomore year of college through mutual friends and clicked almost immediately. She is smart, organized, emotionally open, and the kind of person who plans things years in advance. I am more laid back and tend to take things one step at a time. That difference has always been there, but it never caused serious issues until now. After college, I struggled to find stable work. I bounced between short-term jobs and felt like I was falling behind. A year ago, I started talking seriously with a recruiter and eventually decided to enlist. It was not a decision I made lightly. I talked it through with my parents, with my older brother Daniel, and with Ashley. The idea of structure, purpose, and long-term stability mattered to me. When I told Ashley I was officially signing the paperwork, she cried, but told me she supported me. At least I thought she did. As my ship date got closer, things changed. She started bringing up marriage constantly. At first, it was subtle comments about our future or jokes about rings she liked. Then it became more direct. She told me she expected to be engaged before I left for training. Not eventually. Not someday. Before. That caught me completely off guard. We had talked about marriage in a general sense before. I always said I could see myself marrying her one day. That is still true. But I never promised a specific timeline. I told her joining the military was already a huge life change, and I did not feel ready to add an engagement on top of it. I said I wanted to get through training and settle into my role before making a decision that big. She did not take that well. She said she felt like I was putting her on hold. She said if I really loved her, I would want to lock it in before leaving. She told me she did not want to be the girlfriend waiting at home while I went off and built a new life. I tried to explain that proposing out of pressure felt wrong. I want a proposal to be something I do because I am fully ready, not because I am afraid of losing her. She told me she was not trying to pressure me, but then said she needed reassurance and commitment. To her, a ring was that reassurance. The conversations became more frequent and more emotional. She would cry and ask why she was not enough. I would reassure her and then feel like the worst person alive for still saying no. My mom, Karen, tried to stay neutral, but told me not to propose unless I was sure. My dad, Michael, was more blunt and said proposing just to keep the peace was a bad idea. My brother said the military already comes with enough stress and I should not rush into marriage. Ashley's friends started acting cold toward me. One of them, Megan, outright told me I was being selfish and stringing Ashley along. She said plenty of couples get engaged before deployments and make it work. Ashley repeated that point later and said she felt embarrassed explaining to people why we were not engaged yet. That stung because it made me feel like this was no longer about us, but about optics. I asked her if she wanted to marry me now or if she just wanted security before I left. She got angry and said those were the same thing. I am not sure they are. I started losing sleep over this. I would lie awake wondering if I was being unfair or emotionally immature. I questioned whether my hesitation meant I did not love her enough. At the same time, every time I pictured proposing under this pressure, my chest felt tight. I kept imagining standing there with a ring, knowing part of the reason I did it was fear. The breaking point came a few weeks ago. We were having dinner, and she told me directly that if I left without proposing, she did not know if she could stay in the relationship. She said long distance would be unbearable without a clear commitment. Hearing that felt like the ground dropped out from under me. It felt less like a boundary and more like an ultimatum. I told her I needed time to think, and she accused me of already having my answer. She said she felt like she was investing years of her life into someone who could walk away at any moment. I told her I was not walking away. I was asking for patience. She said patience was something she had already given. Now my ship date is getting closer, and the tension is constant. Some days she acts normal and loving. Other days she is distant and quiet. I feel like every conversation is loaded. I love her, and I hate that this is hurting her. At the same time, I hate the idea of making a lifelong commitment because I am afraid of losing my girlfriend right before I leave. I keep asking myself if proposing now would actually solve anything, or if it would just postpone the conflict. Marriage will not make the distance easier overnight. It will not magically erase fear or insecurity. If anything, it would raise the stakes even higher. I am stuck between wanting to honor the relationship we have built and wanting to be honest about where I am, mentally and emotionally. I do not want to be the guy who makes promises he is not fully ready to keep. I also do not want to lose someone I care deeply about because of timing. Everyone around me seems to have an opinion. Some say proposing is the mature thing to do. Others say I should never propose unless I am 100% sure. I feel like no matter what choice I make, I am going to hurt someone, either her or myself. I never imagined that joining the military would force this kind of decision so fast. I thought love would make things clearer. Right now, it feels like the opposite. I just know that proposing should feel like a step forward, not like a countdown clock. Update. My girlfriend wants a proposal before I join the military, and I feel trapped by the timing. A lot has changed since I last wrote, and I am still trying to process how fast everything unraveled once the deadline became real. I wish I could say there was one dramatic moment, but it was more like a slow collapse that finally reached a point where something had to give. After my last post, Ashley and I had what was supposed to be a calm conversation. I told her I loved her and that my feelings had not changed, but that my answer about proposing before I left had not either. I explained again that I wanted to propose when I felt grounded, not when I was overwhelmed and scared about the future. I told her I wanted to come back from training stronger and more certain, not start my service carrying doubt and guilt. She listened quietly at first, which almost made it worse. Then she told me she had already started emotionally preparing herself for an engagement. She said she had told her parents she expected a ring before I left. She admitted she had even shown her mom pictures of rings she liked. Hearing that made my stomach drop because it felt like a decision had been made without me. She said she felt foolish now and embarrassed, and that the longer I hesitated, the more it confirmed her fear that I was not as committed as she was. I told her commitment is not measured by how fast someone proposes. She said maybe not for me, but for her it was. That conversation ended with both of us crying and going to bed separately for the first time in years. Over the next week, things got tense in a quiet way. We were polite, but distant. I noticed she stopped talking about the future entirely. No more plans, no more jokes, no more reassurance. It felt like she was already pulling away. I tried to reconnect, but every attempt circled back to the same issue. A few days later, she asked if we could take a walk. Halfway through, she stopped and told me she could not do this anymore. She said living in uncertainty while I left for something so consuming would destroy her mental health. She said she did not want to resent me, but she already felt resentment building. She asked me one last time if there was any chance I would propose before I left. I told her no. She nodded like she already knew the answer. She said she loved me, but she needed to choose herself. She said she wanted a partner who was ready to choose her without hesitation. Then she told me she thought it would be better if we ended things before I left instead of dragging the pain out across months of distance. I did not argue. I could not. I felt hollow. We hugged for a long time, and it felt like the end of an era. She moved out a few days later. Watching her pack her things was one of the hardest moments of my life. What I did not expect was the emotional whiplash afterward. One moment I felt relieved that the pressure was gone. The next, I felt like I had just lost the person I planned my life around. I questioned myself constantly. I wondered if I had made a massive mistake. I wondered if I would look back years from now and regret not buying a ring and saying the words. My family has been supportive in their own ways. My mom told me she was proud of me for not making a decision out of fear. My dad said heartbreak hurts less than divorce. My brother reminded me that timing matters just as much as love. Hearing that helped more than I expected. Ashley and I have had limited contact since the breakup. We exchanged a few messages to handle logistics. She told me she hopes I find what I am looking for. I told her I hope she does too. There was no anger, just sadness. As my ship date gets closer, I feel strangely calm. I am still grieving the relationship, but I also feel like I stayed true to myself. I keep thinking about how marriage is supposed to be a foundation, not a bandage. If we could not agree on this now, I do not know how we would have handled everything the military would throw at us later. I miss her. I miss the comfort and the familiarity and the plans we used to make. But I do not regret my decision. Proposing should be about certainty and joy, not deadlines and ultimatums. If that means our paths were not aligned anymore, then as painful as it is better to face that now. I am leaving soon, and I am terrified and hopeful at the same time. I am going alone, but I am going without a promise I was not ready to make. Right now, that feels like the most honest choice I could have made. Stories number 8. My husband asked for a specific dinner, and what he did after finally broke something in me. I am a 31-year-old woman named Lauren living in North Carolina, and I feel ridiculous even typing this out, but I genuinely need outside perspective because I do not trust my own reactions anymore. I have been married to my husband Brian for 4 years and together for 7. We both work full-time. I work as an office administrator and he works in its support. We do not have kids. On paper, our life is fine. In reality, I am exhausted in a way that feels deeper than being tired. I have always been the one who cooks, not because Brian cannot, but because early on, he said he did not enjoy it and I did. That was true at the time. I liked cooking dinner after work. It helped me decompress. Over the years, it slowly turned from something I liked into something that was just expected. If I was sick, I still cooked. If I worked late, I still cooked. If I suggested takeout, Brian would sigh and say okay, but act disappointed. He never directly said it was my job, but it became my job anyway. Brian is also very particular about food. He is not allergic to anything and does not have dietary restrictions. He just has strong preferences and opinions. He does not like food mixed together. He hates sauces unless they are on the side. He complains if chicken is dry or pasta is overcooked. He watches cooking videos online and will make comments like they did that wrong or I would have seasoned that better. He does all this while sitting on the couch scrolling on his phone while I cook. Last month he had a rough week at work and told me he was craving one of his favorite meals, which is chicken parmesan with garlic bread and roasted vegetables. This is not a quick meal. It takes time and multiple steps. I told him I could make it on Friday because I would be less busy. He was excited and talked about it multiple times throughout the week. He reminded me not to forget the fresh basil and said please do not overcook the chicken this time. That comment annoyed me, but I let it go. Friday came and I went all out. I stopped at the grocery store after work. I bought good ingredients. I came home and spent almost 2 hours cooking. I breaded the chicken carefully. I cooked the pasta al dente. I roasted the vegetables with olive oil and seasoning. I even warmed the plates because I had seen someone do that online and thought it would be nice. When I served dinner, Brian took one bite and his face changed immediately. He did not say thank you. He did not say anything positive. He looked at the chicken and said it is kind of soggy. I asked what he meant. He said the breading is not crispy enough and the sauce is overpowering the chicken. He pushed the plate slightly away and said, honestly, I was expecting it to be better since I specifically asked for it. I just stood there. I felt my chest get tight and my face get hot. I asked him if he was serious. He said he was not trying to be mean, just honest, and that I should want feedback so I can improve. Improve. That word did something to me. I told him if he did not like it, he did not have to eat it. He shrugged and said he would just make a sandwich later. I went into the bathroom and cried quietly because I did not want him to hear. I felt stupid for putting in that much effort. I felt unappreciated. I felt like a bad employee who failed a performance review instead of a wife who cooked dinner. When I came out, he was already back on the couch watching TV. The food sat on the table untouched. The next day, Brian acted like nothing happened. He asked me what we were doing for dinner. I told him I was not cooking. He laughed like I was joking. I said I am serious. I am done cooking for you. He looked shocked and asked if I was really still upset about last night. I told him it was not just last night. It was years of comments and expectations. I told him I felt taken for granted. He got defensive fast. He said I was overreacting and that couples criticize each other all the time. He said he works hard and should be able to be honest in his own home. I asked him when the last time was that he cooked a full meal for me. He could not answer. He said cooking is my thing and that I am better at it. I said being better at something does not mean I owe it to him. Since then, I have refused to cook for him. I make simple meals for myself, or eat leftovers, or grab something on the way home. Brian has been eating frozen meals and takeout. He complains about the cost and the quality. He has made comments like I guess I will starve, or must be nice not having to worry about dinner. I have not responded. Last weekend his mother Sharon came over. Apparently Brian told her his side of the story. She pulled me aside and said marriage is about compromise and that I should not withhold something as basic as food. That word withhold made me feel sick. I told her I am not a restaurant. She said I was being stubborn and punishing her son. Brian watched this conversation happen and said nothing. I started questioning myself after that. Am I being dramatic? Is refusing to cook an overreaction? Part of me feels guilty because I know he does not enjoy cooking and I do. Another part of me feels like if I give in now, nothing will ever change. I do not want praise every night. I just want basic respect and appreciation. What hurts the most is that Brian still does not think he did anything wrong. He says if the roles were reversed, he would want honest feedback. I told him if the roles were reversed, I would say thank you first, and criticism only if it was asked for. He rolled his eyes and said I am too sensitive. I love my husband, but right now, I do not like him very much. I am tired of feeling like my effort is invisible until it disappoints him. I am tired of shrinking myself to keep the peace. I do not know if this is about dinner or about something bigger that I have been ignoring for too long. So I am standing my ground for now, even though it is uncomfortable and even though people around me are making me feel like the villain. I need to know if refusing to cook anymore after his reaction makes me unreasonable, or if this is a boundary I should have set a long time ago. Update. My husband asked for a specific dinner and what he did after finally broke something in me. It has been about 6 weeks since I stopped cooking for Brian, and I want to be honest about how this has played out because it has been messier and more emotional than I expected. I read a lot of the replies multiple times, especially the ones that talked about patterns instead of the dinner itself, and that forced me to look at things I had been brushing aside for years. For the first 2 weeks, Brian doubled down. He complained constantly about money because takeout adds up. He made passive-aggressive comments about how frozen meals make him feel sick and how he misses real food. He would open the fridge dramatically and say wow, nothing to eat again. I did not engage. I kept reminding myself that I was not starving him. There was food in the house. He is a grown man with a functioning kitchen. Then, one night, he snapped. He said this was ridiculous and asked how long I planned to keep punishing him. I told him I was not punishing him and that this was not a timeout. I told him I was done cooking under the old dynamic. He asked what that even meant. I said it meant if I cook it, will be because I want to and not because it is expected, and that criticism without appreciation is off the table. He laughed and said so now there are rules. I told him there have always been rules, I just followed them silently. That argument turned into a long conversation that lasted past midnight. For the first time, I did not back down. I told him how invisible I felt. I told him about all the little comments over the years that chipped away at me. The overcooked comments, the seasoning jokes, the sighs when I suggested leftovers. I told him I felt like a short-order cook instead of a partner. He tried to interrupt me a few times, and I told him to let me finish. That alone felt huge. Something shifted after that, not immediately but slowly. He stopped making jokes about starving. He started cooking for himself more, instead of just microwaving things. One night, he actually cooked pasta and offered me some. It was not amazing, but he looked nervous, handing me the plate like he was bracing for judgment. I said thank you and meant it. I think that moment clicked something for him. A week later, he apologized. Not a defensive apology or a sorry you felt that way. He said he was sorry for taking me for granted and for acting like my effort was a service instead of a gift. He admitted he had never really thought about how much mental and emotional energy goes into cooking regularly. He said he got used to comfort and entitlement without realizing it. Hearing that made me cry harder than the original fight. We talked about moving forward. I told him I am willing to cook again, but not every night and not with commentary. We agreed to split cooking nights and to plan meals together. If one of us cooks, the other says thank you no matter what. Feedback only if it is asked for. If something is not to his taste, he can make adjustments himself without turning it into a critique. His mother Sharon did apologize too, which surprised me. She called and said she overstepped and that she did not have the full picture. She said she raised Brian to be honest but not ungrateful, and that she was sorry for using the word withhold. That helped more than I expected. We are not magically fixed. There are moments where I still feel defensive and moments where he has to catch himself before making a comment. But the dynamic has changed. I cooked dinner last night for the first time in weeks. It was simple. Tacos. When I set the plate down, Brian smiled and said thank you for cooking. I really appreciate it. That was it. No analysis, no notes, just gratitude. I realized that was all I ever wanted. This situation forced me to see how easily love can slide into entitlement if you do not speak up early. I wish I had set this boundary years ago, but I am glad I finally did. Refusing to cook was not about control. It was about self-respect and teaching someone how to treat you by changing what you accept. I do not know how things would have gone if Brian had refused to listen or change. I was prepared for the possibility that this was the hill our marriage died on. Thankfully, it was the hill we finally talked on instead of talking past each other. I am still learning how to stop minimizing my own needs, but for the first time in a long while, I feel like an equal partner in my own home. Update. My husband asked for a specific dinner and what he did after finally broke something in me. I wanted to wait before writing this because I did not want to confuse short-term improvement with real change, and I think enough time has passed now for me to see things clearly. It has been a little over 4 months since everything blew up over that dinner, and since then, our marriage has gone through a quiet but serious transformation. After the last update, Brian and I stuck to what we agreed on more consistently than I expected. We made a loose schedule for cooking, but treated it as flexible instead of rigid. Some weeks, we both cooked. Some weeks, neither of us did much, and we relied on leftovers or simple meals. The biggest difference was not the food itself, but the energy in the house. I stopped feeling that constant low-level resentment that used to creep in every afternoon when I thought about dinner. Brian has kept his word about not criticizing. There were a few close calls early on. One night, he almost commented on seasoning and caught himself mid-sentence. He stopped, laughed awkwardly, and said, "Never mind, thank you for cooking." It sounds small, but it meant a lot. I could tell he was actively trying instead of just performing for a week and hoping I would forget. Something else changed too. Brian started noticing other things I do. He thanked me for doing laundry without being asked. He noticed when I cleaned the bathroom. He asked if I was tired instead of assuming I would handle everything. I do not think he was intentionally ignoring these things before. I think he just got comfortable letting me carry the invisible load. Once that was pointed out, it was like he could not unsee it. We did hit another rough patch about 2 months in. Brian had a stressful period at work, and I noticed old habits trying to resurface. One night he came home irritated and asked what was for dinner in that same tone that used to set me off. I felt my body tense immediately. Instead of swallowing it, I told him calmly that the way he asked made me feel like I was right back where we started. To his credit, he apologized right away and said he did not mean it that way. That moment showed me real progress, because before, he would have rolled his eyes or told me I was overreacting. We also ended up going to couples counseling again, but this time with a different therapist named Allison. The experience was completely different. Allison focused a lot on unspoken expectations and how roles quietly form in relationships. She helped Brian understand how appreciation is not just about manners, but about acknowledging effort and autonomy. She also helped me see how avoiding conflict early on trained both of us into an unhealthy pattern. Those sessions were uncomfortable, but productive. The biggest change for me personally is internal. I no longer feel guilty for not doing everything. That guilt was so ingrained that I did not even realize it was there until it started to fade. I do not rush home anxious about dinner anymore. I do not feel like my value as a wife is tied to how well I perform domestic tasks. That shift has made me calmer and more confident in ways that surprised me. Brian and I even talked about kids recently, which is something I used to avoid because I was terrified of adding more responsibility to a dynamic that already felt unbalanced. For the first time, I did not feel immediate panic at the thought. I told him honestly that I would only consider it if we continued operating as partners and not default roles. He agreed without hesitation and said he understands now why that matters. Looking back, I can see that refusing to cook was not the solution itself. It was the catalyst. It forced a conversation that should have happened years ago. It exposed a pattern that was quietly eroding our relationship. I do not regret drawing that line, even though it was uncomfortable and even though people made me feel dramatic for it. I know not every story like this ends well. If Brian had refused to listen or change, I think this update would look very different. I was prepared for that outcome, even though it scared me. What I have learned is that boundaries do not guarantee someone will respect you, but they do guarantee you stop betraying yourself. Right now, our marriage feels more balanced than it ever has. Not perfect and not effortless, but mutual. I cook sometimes because I want to. He cooks sometimes because he wants to. And when either of us does the other, says thank you, and means it. That may sound simple, but for me it represents something much bigger than dinner. It represents being seen. Stories number 9. My girlfriend secretly contacted my ex and spent hours trashing me and my sex life. I never imagined I would be writing something like this, and honestly, I still feel sick thinking about it. I am a guy in my late 20s living in the US, and I have been with my girlfriend Rachel for almost a year. Before her, I was in a long-term relationship with my ex Nicole that lasted nearly 5 years. Nicole and I broke up over 2 years ago, and while it was painful, it was not dramatic. No cheating, no screaming matches, just two people who stopped working together. After some distance, we went fully no contact, and I thought that chapter of my life was closed. When I started dating Rachel, I was upfront about my past. I did not overshare, but I answered questions honestly. She knew Nicole existed, she knew how long we dated, and she knew the breakup was mutual. At least, that is how I experienced it. Rachel sometimes made little comments early on, asking if Nicole was better in bed or if I loved her more. I reassured her every time and told her I chose to be with Rachel now. I thought that would be enough. A few weeks ago, I started noticing a weird shift in Rachel's behavior. She became more critical during sex. She would make comments like, "You never do that with me," or "I bet you learned that from her." I brushed it off as insecurity and tried to be patient. Then she started bringing up oddly specific things about my past relationship. She mentioned arguments Nicole and I had that I never told her about. She commented on my performance in ways that felt rehearsed rather than spontaneous. Something felt off, but I could not put my finger on it. The truth came out accidentally. We were sitting on the couch watching TV when Rachel's phone buzzed. She was in the kitchen and asked me to grab it for her. I saw Nicole's name on the screen. My stomach dropped. I did not open the message, but when I asked Rachel why my ex was texting her, she froze. That silence told me everything. After a long, uncomfortable pause, she admitted that she reached out to Nicole weeks earlier. Not a quick message, not a single question. She admitted they had multiple phone calls and long text conversations. According to Rachel, it started because she wanted closure and reassurance. According to her, it turned into venting sessions. According to her, they talked for hours. When I asked what they talked about, she said everything. And I mean everything. My relationship with Rachel, my relationship with Nicole, my personality, my flaws. And then she casually dropped the bomb that they talked extensively about my sex life. She said Nicole told her intimate details about me. She said Nicole confirmed things Rachel already suspected. She said it helped her understand me better. I felt like the floor disappeared under me. I asked her why she thought it was okay to discuss my private sexual history with someone else without my consent. She got defensive and said Nicole was willing and that it involved her too because she's my girlfriend. I asked her if she talked badly about me. She admitted that yes, they both complained about me. She said they laughed about certain things. She said it was bonding in a weird way. I cannot even describe the level of humiliation I felt. Two people who have had access to my body and my trust sitting around dissecting me like a joke. She told me they talked for hours on multiple occasions. Hours. While I was at work or sleeping. While I thought we were fine. I asked her if she ever planned to tell me, and she said no, because she knew I would react like this. That sentence hurt more than anything else. She knew it would hurt me and did it anyway. I asked her how she would feel if I contacted her ex and spent hours criticizing her body and sexual performance. She said it was different because women talk like that. That made me even angrier. What makes this worse is that Nicole had no reason to be loyal to me anymore, but Rachel did. Rachel is the one who sleeps next to me. Rachel is the one who tells me she loves me, and yet she chose to cross a boundary that feels massive to me. She invited my past into our present in the most invasive way possible. Since that conversation, I cannot look at Rachel the same way. Every time we are intimate, I hear echoes of whatever was said in those conversations. I wonder what was mocked. I wonder what was compared. I wonder if she is judging me based on someone else's words rather than her own experience. I feel exposed in a way I never have before. I also feel betrayed by Nicole in a strange, delayed way. I trusted her with parts of myself that were never meant to be shared as gossip. I never badmouthed her to Rachel. I never shared her vulnerabilities. I respected that what we had stayed between us. Finding out she did not do the same reopened wounds I thought were healed. Rachel says she is sorry now. Rachel says she is sorry now. She says she was insecure and needed validation. She says she did not think it would hurt me this deeply. She promises she has cut off contact with Nicole. But I cannot shake the feeling that a line was crossed that cannot be uncrossed. Trust is not just about cheating. It is about protecting your partner's dignity when they are not in the room. I am also questioning what kind of person does this and thinks it is normal. Reaching out to an ex behind your partner's back. Bonding with them over tearing your partner down. Listening to intimate details about someone you supposedly love, and then bringing that information back into the relationship. It feels calculated, even if she claims it was emotional. I have not told anyone else about this yet because I am embarrassed. It makes me feel small. It makes me feel like a punchline. I am trying to decide if this is something that can be worked through, or if it reveals a level of disrespect that should be a deal breaker. Right now, I am sleeping next to someone who knows things about me I never chose to share. Someone who learned them not from me, but from my past. Someone who was willing to sit for hours trashing me instead of talking to me. I do not know what to do with that. I keep replaying everything in my head, wondering what else she might justify if she feels insecure again. I want a partner who talks to me not about me. I want to feel safe being vulnerable. At the moment, I do not. I am posting here because I need outside perspective. I need to know if this is as messed up as it feels, or if I am overreacting because my ego is bruised. I genuinely do not know how to move forward from this, or if moving forward is even the right choice. Stories number 10. My wife of 10 years came out as a lesbian, and I do not know how to process it. I never thought I would be writing something like this, but here I am because my head feels like it is spinning, and I do not know who to talk to in real life. I am a 38-year-old man named Daniel, and until recently, I thought I was in a solid marriage. My wife Megan and I have been together for over a decade, married for 10 years, and we have 2 kids together. From the outside, our life probably looks normal and even comfortable. We both work, we own a house in the suburbs, and we try our best to be good parents. Looking back, there were signs that something was off, but at the time, I brushed them aside. Megan became more distant over the last couple of years. She was not cold, but she was quieter and more withdrawn. Physical affection faded slowly, not overnight. First it was less intimacy, then fewer hugs, then it felt like we were roommates who shared responsibilities instead of partners who shared a life. Every time I tried to talk about it, she would say she was stressed or tired or just not feeling like herself. I believed her because I loved her and because life really is stressful. We have demanding jobs, kids with busy schedules, and all the usual adult pressures. I told myself this was just a rough patch and that marriages go through phases. I tried harder to be supportive. I picked up more chores, planned date nights, and suggested counseling. She always said maybe later. About 3 months ago, Megan started spending more time with a coworker named Laura. She talked about her a lot, always in a positive way. Laura was funny, understanding, and someone Megan felt she could talk to. I did not feel threatened because I trusted my wife and because it never crossed my mind that there was anything romantic there. I thought she was just happy to have a close friend. Then one night, after the kids were asleep, Megan asked if we could talk. Her voice sounded serious in a way that made my stomach drop. We sat at the kitchen table, and she just stared at her hands for a long time. Finally, she told me she had something important to say and that she was scared to say it. I thought she was going to tell me she wanted a divorce or that she had cheated on me. I was not prepared for what actually came out. She told me she is a lesbian. She said she has known for a long time but tried to suppress it because she wanted a normal life and because she genuinely loved me as a person. She said marrying me felt safe and right at the time, but over the years, the truth became harder to ignore. She said meeting Laura helped her understand herself better, and that she could not keep lying to herself or to me anymore. I sat there in silence while she cried. I did not yell or storm out. I felt numb. A million questions ran through my head at once, but I could not grab onto a single one. I remember asking if she ever loved me. She said yes, but not in the way a wife should love a husband. That answer hurt more than anything else she said that night. Since that conversation, my life feels like it has been split into before and after. Megan says she does not want to hurt me and that she cares deeply about me. She also says she cannot continue the marriage as it is. She wants to live authentically, and I understand that on an intellectual level. Emotionally, I feel like the ground has been pulled out from under me. I keep replaying our entire relationship in my head. Our wedding day, the birth of our kids, the quiet nights on the couch. I wonder which parts were real and which parts were her trying to convince herself she was someone she was not. I feel guilty for even thinking that way, because I know she did not choose to feel this way, but the doubt is still there. The kids do not know yet. We agreed to wait until we have a clearer plan before telling them. That might be the hardest part of all. They are still young enough to need stability, but old enough to sense tension. They have already asked why mom and dad seem sad. Every time they ask, I feel like I am lying to them by smiling and saying everything is fine. Megan has been staying in the guest room. We are polite to each other, almost painfully so. We talk about logistics like groceries, school pickups, and work schedules. We do not talk about feelings unless one of us breaks down. She has admitted she feels relieved and guilty at the same time. I feel angry, heartbroken, and strangely protective of her all at once. Part of me wants to scream and ask why she married me if she knew this about herself. Another part of me sees how scared she must have been and how much pressure society puts on people to fit into a certain mold. I keep going back and forth between empathy and resentment, sometimes within the same hour. I have also started worrying about the practical side of things. We share finances, a mortgage, and kids. I have no idea what separation or divorce would look like for us. I have thought about speaking to a lawyer just to understand my options, but doing that feels like making this situation more real than I am ready for. At the same time, I do not want to be unprepared or naive. Friends and family do not know yet either. Megan is not ready to come out publicly, and I am not ready to explain my own feelings to people who might not understand. I worry about being judged for being angry, and I worry about her being judged for being honest. Right now, this secret feels heavy and isolating. I do not hate my wife. I still care about her deeply. But I am grieving the marriage I thought I had and the future I imagined. I am grieving the idea that I was her person in the way I believed I was. I am also terrified of starting over at this stage of my life, especially with kids involved. I do not know what the right next step is. I do not know if we should try counseling together or if that would just delay the inevitable. I do not know how to balance supporting her truth while also honoring my own pain. All I know is that I wake up every morning with a knot in my chest, trying to figure out how to move forward without completely falling apart. I am sharing this because I feel lost and because keeping it all inside is starting to break me. Update: my wife of 10 years came out as a lesbian, and I do not know how to process it. It has been a little over 2 months since I first found out, and things have moved forward in ways I was not prepared for, both slowly and all at once. After I wrote my original post, I realized I could not keep functioning in limbo. The uncertainty was eating at me, and the tension in the house was starting to affect the kids more than we wanted to admit. Megan and I finally agreed to sit down and talk through what separation would realistically look like. That conversation was calmer than I expected and somehow more painful. She told me she has been seeing a therapist on her own, and that she is certain she cannot continue our marriage in a romantic sense. She said this is not a phase or confusion, and that while she cares about me deeply, she knows staying married would only build resentment on both sides. Hearing that finality made something sink in for me. As much as I wished she would say she was unsure, she was not. We decided to tell the kids together. That was one of the hardest days of my life. We kept it simple and age appropriate. We told them that mom and dad love them very much, but that we will not be married anymore and will eventually live in different houses. We did not explain sexuality in detail, just that sometimes adults realize things about themselves and need to make changes. Our oldest cried and asked if it was their fault. Our youngest just asked if they would still see both of us. I held it together until they went to bed, and then I completely fell apart in the shower where no one could hear me. After that, things became more real very quickly. Megan moved out of the guest room and into a small apartment about 15 minutes away. She wanted to stay close so the kids' routines would not be disrupted too much. Watching her pack her things felt surreal. 10 years of shared life boiled down into boxes and bags. There was no yelling or fighting, just this heavy sadness hanging in the air. I did end up speaking to a lawyer. I felt guilty about it at first, like I was betraying her, but it turned out to be one of the smartest decisions I have made. The lawyer was calm and straightforward and helped me understand custody, finances, and what a fair separation could look like. Megan also got her own lawyer, and thankfully we are on the same page about keeping things as amicable as possible. We both want joint custody and to minimize disruption for the kids. Emotionally, I am all over the place. Some days I feel numb and just go through the motions of work, parenting, and basic survival. Other days, the anger hits me out of nowhere. I get angry thinking about how much of my life was built on something that was never fully real. I get angry wondering if she ever questioned staying or if I was just a convenient choice at the time. Then I feel guilty for being angry because I know she did not choose her orientation and I know she was scared and trying to do what she thought was right. Megan and I have had a few honest conversations since the separation. She admitted that she ignored her feelings for years because she did not want to hurt me or break up our family. She said she convinced herself that love and commitment would be enough. Hearing that helped me understand, but it did not erase the pain. I told her honestly that I support her living truthfully, but that I am also allowed to grieve and feel hurt. For the first time, I felt like she truly heard that. The kids are adjusting slowly. They miss having both of us in the same house, but they are also more relaxed now that the tension has eased. They spend a few nights a week with Megan and the rest with me. We keep routines consistent, and we do not speak badly about each other in front of them. I am trying to be strong for them, even on days when I feel completely exhausted. As for Laura, that situation became clearer too. Megan admitted she has feelings for her, but she says nothing physical happened while we were together. I chose to believe her because holding on to suspicion would only poison what little peace we have left. Still, knowing there is already someone else in her life hurts in a way I cannot fully explain. I started therapy myself after realizing I could not handle this alone. It has helped more than I expected. I am learning that two things can be true at the same time. Megan can be honest and brave for coming out, and I can still feel devastated by what it means for my life. One does not cancel out the other. I am slowly beginning to imagine a future that looks different from what I planned. It is scary and lonely, but it is no longer completely blank. I am focusing on being a good father, keeping my job steady, and taking things one day at a time. I still miss my wife, or at least the version of her I thought I had. But I am also starting to accept that clinging to that version will not bring it back. This is not the ending I wanted, and it is not the life I envisioned when we got married. But I am trying to believe that eventually there will be a version of peace on the other side of this. Right now, that hope is small. Stories number 11. My childhood friend from overseas has been staying at my place way longer than expected, and I do not know how to tell him it is time to go. I am a 31-year-old guy living alone in a one-bedroom apartment in the U.S. I work a steady but not amazing job in its support, and my life is pretty routine. I like my space. I like knowing when I will be alone and when I will be around people. That context matters because this whole situation started with good intentions and slowly turned into something that now makes my stomach tighten every time I unlock my front door. I grew up partially overseas because my dad worked for an international company. During that time, I became close friends with a kid named Adrian. We were inseparable from ages 10 to 14. Same school, same soccer team, same bad decisions. When my family moved back to the US, we stayed in touch for a while, But eventually life happened. Social media likes here and there, birthday messages, the usual. About 6 months ago, Adrian messaged me out of the blue. He told me he was planning to visit the US for the first time. He said it had always been a dream of his and that he finally saved enough money. He asked if we could meet up. I was genuinely excited. Nostalgia hit hard. I remembered him as this funny, easygoing guy who felt like family when we were kids. A week later, he asked if he could stay with me for a bit to save money. He said maybe 2 weeks, 3 at most. I hesitated, but said yes. I live alone and have a pull-out couch. I figured it would be fun to reconnect and show him around. I told him clearly that I could do a couple of weeks, but I work full-time and my place is small. He said he totally understood and would mostly be out exploring. He arrived with one large suitcase and a backpack. The first few days were great. We stayed up late talking about childhood memories. I took a couple days off work to show him around the city. He was grateful and enthusiastic, and I felt good about hosting him. Then, little things started to change. Instead of going out during the day, he started sleeping in until noon. I would come home from work, and he would still be there on the couch watching videos. He said he was adjusting to the time difference. Fair enough. Then, he started asking me what we were doing for dinner every night. At first I cooked, and we split groceries. After a while, I noticed I was paying more often, and he stopped offering. At the end of the second week, I casually asked what his plan was next. He laughed and said, "Oh yeah, I need to figure that out." He said he was thinking of staying in the city longer because he liked the vibe. I asked where he was planning to stay. He shrugged and said he had not booked anything yet, but maybe he could just crash with me a bit longer. I reminded him of what we agreed on originally. He said of course, and that it would just be a few extra days. I did not push. That was my first mistake. Those few extra days turned into another week. Then, another. By week 4, it was clear he had no real plan. He was not working. He was not actively sightseeing. He was not applying for short-term jobs or hostels. He spent most days on my couch or walking around the neighborhood. He started making comments like "our place" when referring to my apartment. He also started getting comfortable in ways that crossed into my boundaries. He would borrow my clothes without asking. He would invite people over without checking with me first. One night, I came home and found a guy I had never met sitting on my couch eating my food. Adrian acted like it was no big deal and said he met him at a bar and invited him over. That night, I finally tried to talk to him seriously. I told him I was feeling overwhelmed and that I needed my space back. He apologized and said he did not realize he was being a burden. He said he was just so happy to feel at home somewhere. That line hit me with guilt, and I backed off again. A few days later, he told me his visa allowed him to stay for several months. That was the moment I realized he might be planning to stay indefinitely. I asked him directly what his plan was. He said he was thinking of seeing if he could build a life here. He joked that maybe we could be roommates for a while. I laughed awkwardly, but inside, I was panicking. I never agreed to that. My lease does not allow long-term guests. I cannot afford to support another adult. I also just do not want a roommate, especially not one I did not choose under these circumstances. The tension started affecting my daily life. I stopped inviting my own friends over because I felt awkward. I started staying later at work just to have some alone time. I felt resentful over small things like him using my coffee or leaving dishes in the sink. I hated that I was starting to dislike someone I once cared about. The worst part is that he is not a bad person. He is polite on the surface. He says thank you. He just seems completely unaware or unwilling to acknowledge how much he is imposing. Or maybe he does know and is hoping I will not say anything. Last week, my landlord emailed me about a routine inspection. I panicked because technically Adrian is not supposed to be there this long. I told Adrian about it and asked him to make himself scarce that day. He got quiet and asked if I was embarrassed of him. That was not what I said at all, but that is how he took it. Since then, things have been tense, He has made comments about how hard it is to be alone in a foreign country and how lucky I am to have stability. I sympathize, but I also feel manipulated. I did not sign up to be someone's lifeline. I have tried drafting the conversation in my head 100 times. I know I need to tell him clearly that he needs to leave and give him a timeline. I am just terrified of blowing up the friendship or coming off as heartless. At the same time, I am starting to feel like my kindness is being taken advantage of. I talked to my sister Rachel about it, and she was blunt. She said he is an adult and not my responsibility. She said the longer I wait, the harder it will be. She is probably right, but knowing that does not make it easier. Every night I lie in bed, listening to him snore on the other side of the wall, and I feel this mix of guilt and frustration. I want my apartment back. I want my routine back. I want to stop feeling like a bad guy in my own home. I do not know how to end this without it turning ugly. I do not know if there is a kind way to say you overstayed your welcome. All I know is that something has to change soon, because this situation is starting to affect my mental health and my sense of control over my own life. I never imagined that saying yes to an old friend for a couple of weeks would turn into this. I feel trapped by my own politeness, and I am running out of ways to justify staying silent. Update: my childhood friend from overseas has been staying at my place way longer than expected, and I do not know how to tell him it is time to go. I finally had the conversation, and it went about as badly and as relieving as I imagined at the same time. After I posted, I spent another week putting it off, which only made me more on edge. I was short with Adrian without meaning to be, and the apartment felt heavier every day. I realized that if I kept avoiding it, I was going to blow up over something stupid like dirty dishes, and that would be worse for both of us. The push came when my landlord followed up about the inspection and reminded me about the guest clause in my lease. Seeing it in writing made my chest tighten. I could not pretend anymore that this was just awkward. There were real consequences for me if this kept going. That night, after dinner, I asked Adrian if we could talk. He immediately looked nervous, which told me on some level he knew this was coming. We sat at the kitchen table, and for once, I did not soften my words. I told him directly that when he came, we agreed on 2 or 3 weeks, and that it had now been over 6. I told him I care about him, but this arrangement is no longer working for me. At first, he tried to joke it off and said, "Wow, time flies." I did not laugh. I told him I need my space back, and that I cannot host him anymore. I explained about my lease and about how my routine and mental health had been affected. I tried to keep my voice calm, but my hands were shaking. He went quiet for a long time, and then said he thought I was happy to have him there. I told him I was at first, but that things changed when there was no plan and no end in sight. He asked why I did not say something sooner. That hurt, because he was right. I admitted that I should have spoken up earlier and that I was trying to be nice, but ended up making it worse. Then he got emotional. He talked about how lonely he feels here and how hard it is to start over in a new country. He said my place felt like the only stable thing he had. That was the hardest part. I felt like the villain in his story, even though I knew I was allowed to have boundaries. I told him, I am sorry he is struggling, but I cannot be his solution. I said he needs to make other arrangements, and that I need a clear move out date. He asked how much time I was giving him. I said 2 weeks. Saying it out loud felt terrifying, but also necessary. He did not take that well. He said 2 weeks is not enough to figure things out. I said it is what I can offer, and that I had already given far more than I originally agreed to. He accused me of changing, and said the person he remembered from childhood would not do this. That stung, but I did not back down. After that, the mood shifted completely. He stopped talking and went to lie down on the couch. The next few days were extremely uncomfortable. He barely spoke to me, and when he did it was short answers. I could feel the resentment radiating off him. A few days later, he told me he reached out to another acquaintance he met recently and might be able to stay there temporarily. He said it like he was doing me a favor. I thanked him anyway because I just wanted this to move forward. During the second week, he packed slowly and dramatically. He made comments about how expensive everything is and how hard it is without family. I tried to be polite, but distant. I did not want to get pulled back into guilt mode. The day he left was awkward. He loaded his suitcase and backpack and stood by the door like he expected some big emotional goodbye. I wished him well and told him I hope things work out. He hugged me stiffly and said he did not expect this from me. Then he left. When the door closed, I felt an overwhelming mix of sadness and relief. I sat on the couch for a long time, just enjoying the silence. No TV playing in the background, no someone else in my space, just quiet. Over the next few days, I realized how tense I had been living. I slept better. I stopped staying late at work. I invited a friend over without feeling weird about it. The apartment felt like mine again. Adrian texted me once after leaving saying he found a short-term place and that things are still uncertain. I replied politely and wished him luck. The conversation ended there. We have not talked since. I do not know if this friendship will survive long term. Part of me is sad about that, but another part of me knows that the version of him I remembered no longer exists or maybe never did in adulthood. I also learned something important about myself. Being kind does not mean being silent. Avoiding discomfort only creates bigger problems later. I still feel guilty sometimes, but it is quieter now. It no longer controls my day. If anything, this experience taught me that protecting your space does not make you cruel. It just makes you honest. Stories number 12. My grandmother's things are going to end up with my in-laws, and I cannot stand it, so I have been quietly taking them. Obligatory. This is not for advice, and the items mentioned belong to my dad and uncle. I am posting this because I need to get it off my chest, and I cannot say this out loud to anyone in my real life without sounding unhinged. I know how this looks. I know how it sounds. I am not asking for validation or legal guidance or a plan. I just need somewhere to put the truth, because carrying it around has been eating at me. My grandmother Margaret was the center of our family. She was not rich, but she was intentional. Every object in her house had a story, and she told those stories like they mattered, because they did. Her dining table was scratched from decades of family dinners. Her jewelry box was full of costume pieces she wore every Sunday without fail. She kept handwritten recipes taped inside cabinets. When I think of home, I think of her house. She passed away 2 years ago. It was not sudden, but it was still devastating. My dad Thomas and my uncle Richard handled the estate. There was no formal will for the small things. The house and money were sorted legally, but the personal items were left to be divided between them. They agreed to take their time and decide together. At least, that was the plan. Here is where things start to feel wrong to me. My uncle married his wife Cynthia about 5 years ago. She has 2 adult children from a previous marriage named Kevin and Laura. They were never close to my grandmother. They visited on holidays and mostly stayed on their phones. They called her Margaret instead of Grandma. It always rubbed me the wrong way, but I kept my mouth shut. After my grandmother died, Cynthia suddenly became very interested in her things. She started talking about how much she loved vintage decor and heirlooms. She made comments about how some items would look perfect in her house. She asked about the china. She asked about the jewelry. She asked about the quilt my grandmother sewed by hand. All of it felt invasive and opportunistic. My dad noticed it too, but he is passive by nature. He hates conflict and tends to give in to keep the peace. My uncle is the same way when it comes to his wife. He would say things like, "It is just stuff," or "Mom would want everyone to enjoy it." Every time I heard that, I felt like screaming. What hurt the most was realizing that these things would not just go to Cynthia, but eventually to her kids. Kids who barely knew my grandmother. Kids who have no emotional connection to these items. Kids who might sell them or toss them or treat them like interchangeable decor. The idea of my grandmother's wedding ring ending up in a pawn shop someday makes my chest hurt. At first, I tried to be reasonable. I told my dad how uncomfortable I felt. I reminded him of how important certain items were. He said he understood, but that it was complicated. He said it was not his place to dictate what my uncle did with his share. That was the moment I realized no one was going to protect these things. The first time I took something, it was almost accidental. We were at my grandmother's house going through a closet. Cynthia was talking loudly in the other room about curtains. I found a small wooden music box my grandmother used to keep on her nightstand. She used to wind it every night. Without really thinking, I put it in my bag. My hands were shaking the entire drive home. I told myself it was temporary. I told myself I was just keeping it safe. I planned to give it to my dad later. But then, I saw Cynthia wrap a set of my grandmother's teacups like they were nothing special. And I felt that same panic rise again. Over the next several months, it kept happening. Small things. A recipe card. A brooch. A framed photo that I knew Cynthia would toss because it did not match her aesthetic. Every time I justified it the same way. These things belong to my dad and uncle. I am not stealing from strangers. I am preserving history that no one else seems to value. The guilt is complicated. I do feel it. I am not pretending I do not. I feel it when I look at the items hidden in a box under my bed. I feel it when I think about what would happen if someone noticed. But I also feel a deep sense of relief knowing those items are not sitting in a house where they mean nothing. The breaking point came last Thanksgiving. Cynthia brought out one of my grandmother's quilts and casually mentioned she might cut it up to make pillows. I nearly choked on my drink. That quilt took my grandmother years to finish. She stitched it while watching reruns and listening to the radio. The idea of scissors touching it made something snap in me. That night, I took more than I ever had before. I took the jewelry box. I took the letters my grandfather wrote during the war. I took a stack of old photographs. I knew I was crossing a line, but I also knew I could not watch those things be destroyed or scattered. I have not told my dad everything. He knows I have some items, but not how many. Part of me thinks he suspects and is choosing not to ask. Part of me is terrified he will one day confront me. My uncle would be hurt. Cynthia would be furious. The family fallout would be enormous. I am not proud of how I am handling this. I know there are healthier ways this could have gone. But every time I imagine my grandmother's things ending up with people who never loved her, I feel justified all over again. It feels like I am the only one standing between memory and erasure. I do not know how this ends. I do not know if I will ever come clean, or if these items will quietly stay with me until I can pass them down properly. I just know that grief does strange things to people, and this is what it has done to me. I miss my grandmother. I miss the way her house felt safe and full. Holding on to her things feels like holding on to her. Maybe that makes me wrong. Maybe it makes me selfish. All I know is that I could not stand by and watch pieces of her life lose their meaning. So I did something I never thought I would do, and I am carrying that truth alone. Update: my grandmother's things are going to end up with my in-laws, and I cannot stand it, so I have been quietly taking them. I did not expect to feel the kind of anxiety I have been living with since I last wrote. Getting it off my chest helped for a moment, but reality did not slow down, and things came to a head faster than I thought they would. A few weeks after everything was supposedly finished at my grandmother's house, my uncle mentioned during a family dinner that some items seemed to be missing. He said it casually at first, like he thought they had been misplaced or boxed up somewhere else. Cynthia immediately stiffened. She started listing specific things she could not find. The jewelry box, some photos, a few small keepsakes. I felt my heart pounding so hard I thought everyone could hear it. I kept my face neutral and said nothing. My dad looked confused but not alarmed. He said maybe they were packed already or moved for safekeeping. Cynthia did not like that answer. She started insisting they do a full inventory. The word inventory made my stomach drop. Over the next few days, there were group texts flying back and forth. Cynthia was suddenly very invested in making sure everything was accounted for. She said it was about fairness. She said she did not want things to go missing. Every message felt like it was aimed directly at me, even though no one said my name. My dad came over one evening and asked me point blank if I had taken anything else from the house. He did not sound angry. He sounded tired. I told him yes, not everything, not the full truth, but enough that I could not lie anymore. I told him I was scared of where things were ending up. I told him about the quilt comment. I told him I felt like no one was protecting my grandmother's memory. He sat quietly for a long time. Then he surprised me. He did not yell. He did not accuse me. He said he wished I had come to him sooner, but he understood why I felt panicked. He admitted he had been uncomfortable with how fast Cynthia claimed things, but did not want to start a fight with his brother. He said that was on him. That relief did not last long. My uncle found out shortly after. My dad told him some items were with me for safekeeping. That was the phrase he used, safekeeping. Cynthia did not accept that. She came over unannounced with my uncle and demanded to see what I had. That confrontation was one of the most uncomfortable moments of my life. Cynthia accused me of stealing. She said I had no right to take things that did not belong to me. She said I was acting entitled and emotional. I told her calmly that those items belonged to my grandmother and that watching them be treated like decor made me sick. I brought up the quilt. I brought up the comments about cutting things up or selling them later. She denied it at first and then said people are allowed to do what they want with their property. My uncle looked torn. He kept rubbing his hands together and saying he did not want drama. My dad finally stepped in and said this situation never should have gotten this far. In the end, a compromise was forced into existence. My dad and uncle agreed to formally divide the remaining items between themselves and keep them within the family line. That meant certain sentimental things would stay with my dad and some with my uncle, but not be altered or sold. Cynthia was furious. She accused everyone of freezing her out. She said she felt disrespected and unwelcome. My uncle backed her publicly, but privately apologized to my dad. As for the items I took, my dad told me to keep them for now. He said returning them would only escalate things further, and that he trusted me to take care of them. Hearing that made me cry in a way I was not prepared for. I did not realize how badly I needed someone to acknowledge that my intentions were not malicious. The family dynamic is strained now. Holidays are awkward. Cynthia barely speaks to me. Kevin and Laura have unfriended me on social media. I can live with that. What still weighs on me is the knowledge that I crossed a line even if the outcome ended up protecting what mattered. I still feel guilt. I do not think that will ever fully go away. But I also feel less alone in it. Grief makes people do things they would normally judge harshly. I understand now that my fear was not really about objects. It was about losing the last physical pieces of someone who made me feel safe. The items are still with me. They are wrapped carefully and stored properly. Sometimes I take one out and hold it and let myself remember without panic. I do not know what the long-term plan is. Maybe one day these things will be passed down openly without secrecy or tension. Maybe they will stay quiet guardians of memory for a while longer. What I do know is that I am no longer carrying this completely alone, and that makes the weight easier to bear. I still miss my grandmother every day. Keeping her things safe feels like the closest thing I can do to keeping her close. Stories number 13. My dad thinks I am cruel for saying his new girlfriend is not welcome at my son's birthday. I am a 36-year-old man named Eric, living in Pennsylvania, and this situation has turned into something way bigger than I ever expected. I feel like I am losing my mind because half my family says I am heartless and the other half says I should have shut this down even sooner. I need to lay this all out because context matters here and everyone keeps reducing it to one sentence. My son Noah just turned 7. He is my world. I share custody with my ex-wife Amanda, and while our marriage did not work, we are solid co-parents. Noah's birthday party is one of the few times a year where both sides of the family come together without tension. Or at least, that was the plan. My parents divorced when I was in my early 20s. My mom, Linda, took it hard. My dad, Robert, had an affair with a woman from his office, which he denied for years until it finally came out. That woman was named Carol. My mom was devastated. The divorce was ugly. I was put in the middle constantly. My dad wanted me to accept Carol immediately. My mom could barely say her name without crying. Eventually, my dad and Carol broke up. I thought that chapter was closed. My dad spent years single and honestly bitter. Then about 8 months ago, he started dating someone new named Melissa. She is younger than him by about 15 years. She has never been married and does not have kids. I have met her exactly once at a random lunch. She was polite but overly familiar, calling me sweetie and touching my arm, which made me uncomfortable. Here is the issue. My dad has a pattern. When he gets into a relationship, he goes all in and expects everyone else to follow. He pushes boundaries. He brings girlfriends to events without asking. He introduces them as part of the family immediately. He gets offended if anyone hesitates. He did this with Carol, and it caused permanent damage. When Noah's birthday came up, Amanda and I agreed to host it at my house. It was a small party, just family and a few of Noah's friends. I invited my dad and told him the details. He responded by saying, "Great, Melissa, and I will be there," not asking, stating. I called him and told him calmly that this party was about Noah and that I was not comfortable having his new girlfriend there. I explained that my mom would be there. Amanda would be there. There would be kids. I said I did not want drama or awkwardness. I said I barely know Melissa and this was not the place to introduce her. He went silent and then said, "Wow, I did not realize you were ashamed of me." I told him that is not what I said. He said I was punishing him for past mistakes. I told him this was not about him. It was about my son having a peaceful birthday. He got angry fast. He said Melissa is important to him, and if she is not welcome, then maybe he should not come either. I told him that was his choice, but that my boundary stood. He accused me of choosing my mother over him. I told him I am choosing my child. Word spread fast. My Aunt Denise called me and said I was being unfair and that Melissa did nothing wrong. My cousin Josh texted me saying I was embarrassing my dad. Even my sister Rachel said maybe I should just let her come to keep the peace. That phrase made my blood boil, because keeping the peace always seems to mean I am the one who has to bend. I talked to my mom Linda about it, and she told me she would skip the party if Melissa came because she did not want to cry in front of her grandson. That broke my heart. Noah adores his grandmother. I was not going to take that away from him to accommodate a woman my dad has known less than a year. The day before the party, my dad called again. He said Melissa was hurt and felt excluded. I said I understand, but this is not a family reunion or a wedding. It is a child's birthday. He said she is part of his life now. I said that does not automatically make her part of Noah's life. He did not come to the party. He sent a gift through my sister. Noah noticed. He asked why Grandpa was not there. I told him Grandpa was busy. I hated lying, but I was not about to dump adult conflict on a 7-year-old. After the party, my dad sent me a long message saying I humiliated him and that I am teaching my son to be intolerant. That hurt, because I try so hard to raise Noah to be kind. I responded that kindness does not mean having no boundaries. He has not replied since. I keep replaying everything. Part of me feels guilty because Melissa herself did nothing directly to me. Another part of me knows that if I gave in, this would never stop. The next step would be holidays. Then school events. Then pressure for family photos. I have lived this cycle before, and I refuse to put my son in the middle of it. I do not hate my dad. I do not hate his girlfriend. I just wanted one day that was simple and focused on my kid. Somehow that turned into a referendum on my loyalty and my character. So now I am sitting here wondering if I drew a reasonable boundary or if I let old wounds dictate my choices. I need to know if telling my dad his new girlfriend could not come to my son's birthday makes me the bad guy, or if this is one of those moments where being a parent means disappointing someone else. Update. My dad thinks I am cruel for saying his new girlfriend is not welcome at my son's birthday. It has been a little over a month since my son's birthday, and things have not settled the way I hoped they might. If anything, the silence and tension have made everything feel heavier. I want to explain what happened after the party, because a lot of people assumed this would blow over, and it very much did not. A few days after the birthday, my dad finally called me. His tone was calm in a way that felt forced, like he had rehearsed what he wanted to say. He told me he felt deeply disrespected and that he had spent the past week defending Melissa to his side of the family. He said people were asking why his own son treated his partner like a stranger. I told him she is a stranger to me and to Noah. He said that was my choice. He asked me if this was how things were going to be going forward. He specifically asked if Melissa would be excluded from future events like Thanksgiving and Christmas. I told him honestly that I did not know yet, and that those conversations would depend on time trust and how things were handled. That answer made him angry. He said relationships do not grow if people keep walls up. I told him relationships also do not grow when boundaries are bulldozed. He then told me something that really stuck with me. He said Melissa feels like she is being punished for a mistake she did not make. I told him I agree, and that this is one of the unfortunate realities of dating someone with a complicated past. I said my job is not to make his relationship easier. My job is to protect my child and keep family events safe and calm. After that call, he stopped reaching out. Instead, other people did. My Aunt Denise sent me a long message about forgiveness and moving on. My cousin Josh posted a vague quote on social media about cutting out toxic people even when they are family. I muted them. I did not have the energy. The most difficult part of all of this has been watching how it affects Noah in small ways. He asked again why Grandpa did not come over anymore. He asked if he did something wrong. That crushed me. I reassured him that none of this was his fault and that sometimes adults disagree but still love each other. He accepted that because kids are resilient in ways adults forget how to be. About 2 weeks ago, something unexpected happened. Melissa reached out to me directly. She sent a message saying she hoped it was okay to contact me and that she wanted to clear the air. She said she understood why I might be hesitant and that she never intended to cause stress. She said she did not know the full history when my dad invited her to the party and felt awful when she found out that my mom was going to be there. I appreciated the message more than I thought I would. I responded politely and thanked her for understanding. I told her my issue was never personal and that my concern was always about timing and context. She replied that she respected that and hoped that with time, things might feel more comfortable. That conversation alone made me wish my dad had handled things with half as much maturity. When I told my dad about the exchange, he reacted strangely. He seemed almost annoyed that Melissa and I had spoken without him. He said it made him look like the bad guy. I told him I was not trying to make him look like anything and that this situation did not need a villain. He said it felt like everyone was judging him. I said maybe that feeling was worth sitting with instead of deflecting. That was the last real conversation we had. Since then, there has been distance. He did not come to Noah's soccer game last weekend. He did not call on my birthday. That hurt more than I expected. At the same time, something inside me feels calmer. I am not constantly bracing for the next demand or emotional ambush. I am not being pulled in different directions trying to manage everyone else's feelings. I am focusing on my son and my own little family. I still hope there is a path forward. I am not trying to erase my dad from my life or from Noah's. But I am no longer willing to sacrifice my boundaries to keep him comfortable. If that means he needs time to adjust or even distance, then that is something I have to accept. I keep reminding myself that protecting my child does not require unanimous approval. It just requires me to do what I believe is right even when it is uncomfortable. I do not know what the future looks like with my dad and his girlfriend involved. I only know that this situation forced me to step out of the role of peacekeeper and into the role of parent, and that shift changed everything. Stories number 14. My breaking point over the one meal I saved just for myself. I feel ridiculous that this is the thing that finally pushed me over the edge, but at the same time, it feels like it was never really about the food. I am a 32-year-old woman living in the US, and for the past year, I have been sharing a house with my older sister Danielle. She is 35. We moved in together after her divorce because she needed help financially and emotionally, and I had just ended a lease and thought it made sense. We have always had a complicated relationship, but I told myself we were adults now and things would be different. Danielle has 2 kids, Lucas, who is 9, and Harper, who is 6. I love them, but living with children again after years of living alone has been a big adjustment. The house is always loud. Food disappears quickly. Nothing feels like it belongs only to me anymore. I work full-time at a stressful job in healthcare, and I am also taking night classes to finish a certification. By the time I get home most days, I am exhausted and overstimulated. From the beginning, food has been a recurring issue. Danielle and I split groceries loosely, but in reality, I end up buying most of my own food because her kids are picky and she prefers quick frozen meals. I am careful with money and with what I eat. I meal prep. I label things. I have asked multiple times for my food to be left alone. Sometimes it works for a week or two, and then it goes right back to things disappearing. Usually it is small stuff. Yogurt cups, snacks, drinks. Annoying but manageable. Danielle always says sorry and blames the kids or says she forgot to tell them. I try to be understanding because I know being a single mom is hard. I swallow my frustration because I do not want to be the difficult sister. Last week was especially rough for me. I had 3 double shifts in a row and an exam coming up. I barely slept. On Sunday night, I stopped at a small restaurant near the hospital and ordered one specific meal I had been craving for days. It was not cheap and I rarely eat out, but I wanted something comforting. I ate half and brought the rest home. I wrote my name on the container in big letters and put it in the back of the fridge. I was already looking forward to eating it the next day after my exam. The next evening, I came home completely drained. My exam had gone poorly, and I just wanted to shower and eat my leftovers in peace. I opened the fridge and the container was gone. Not moved, not partially eaten, gone. I stood there longer than I want to admit, just staring. I felt this wave of disappointment and anger that surprised me with how strong it was. I asked Danielle if she had seen my food. She did not even look up from her phone and said, "Oh yeah, Lucas ate that earlier. He was hungry." And it was just sitting there. Something in me snapped. I asked her why she would let him eat food that had my name on it. She shrugged and said it was no big deal and that I can always get more. I told her that was not the point and that I specifically saved it for myself. She rolled her eyes and said I was being dramatic over leftovers. That is when I lost it. I started crying and yelling at the same time, which is not something I usually do. I told her I am tired of my things not being respected. I told her I am tired of always being the one who has to let things go. I told her that this was the one thing I was looking forward to, and she did not even ask before giving it away. She got defensive immediately. She said I was attacking her parenting. She said kids come first, and I should understand that. She said if I do not want to share food, I should get a mini fridge for my room. That suggestion felt like a slap in the face. This is my house too. I pay half the rent. Why should I have to hide food like a teenager? Her kids were in the other room and could probably hear us, which made everything worse. She accused me of making them feel unwelcome. I told her that respecting boundaries is not making kids feel unwelcome. She said I am selfish and do not understand what it is like to be a mother. I ended up locking myself in my room and crying for an hour. Not just about the food, but about everything. About feeling invisible, about feeling like my needs always come last, about agreeing to this living situation out of guilt and love, and slowly realizing how much it has been costing me mentally. The next day, Danielle acted like nothing happened. She made jokes. She asked me if I wanted to watch a show with her. She never apologized. When I brought it up, she said she already said sorry and that I need to move on. She said families share, and I am making things uncomfortable. Now I am questioning myself constantly. Did I overreact? Was this just about food? Am I really that selfish? Or was this a buildup of months of feeling disrespected and taken for granted? I keep replaying her words in my head about kids coming first and wondering where that leaves me in this household. I am also thinking about the future. How long can I live like this? How many more times do I have to give up small comforts to keep the peace? I do not want to resent my sister or her kids, but I am starting to, and that scares me. I feel guilty for yelling. I feel guilty for crying. I feel guilty for wanting something just for myself. At the same time, I feel angry that something so small had to turn into a blow-up because my boundaries were ignored yet again. I have not eaten out since because it feels pointless. I have been skipping meals because I am afraid of things disappearing, and it is making me more irritable and tired. That is when I realized this is no longer a small issue. I do not know if I should apologize again just to smooth things over or stand my ground and risk more tension. I do not know if asking for basic respect in a shared space really makes me the bad guy. All I know is that the food was just a last straw, and I am exhausted from always being the one expected to bend. I am posting because I need perspective. I need to know if losing it over that meal makes me unreasonable or if it is understandable given everything else. I never wanted a fight. I just wanted to eat the one thing I saved for myself and feel like I matter too. Update: my breaking point over the one meal I saved just for myself. A lot has happened since I posted, and I needed some time before I could even put it into words. I read through the responses more times than I can count, and even though it was hard to hear some of it, it forced me to stop minimizing what has been going on in my own home. I kept telling myself it was just food or just stress, but it has clearly been more than that for a long time. A couple days after the blow-up, I tried to talk to Danielle again calmly. I told her I was not proud of yelling, but that I needed her to understand why it hurt so much. I explained how overwhelmed I have been, how little control I feel like I have in the house, and how the leftovers were the one small thing I was looking forward to. I was hoping she would finally hear me. Instead, she doubled down. She told me she feels judged all the time as a mother, and that my reaction made her feel like a failure. She said I should be more flexible, because kids are unpredictable and hungry. She repeated that families share, and that I should not expect to keep food separate in a house with children. When I brought up how often my things go missing, she said I focus too much on myself and not enough on what the household needs. That conversation was the moment something shifted for me. I realized she was not misunderstanding me. She simply did not agree that my needs mattered as much as hers and the kids. She sees my flexibility as an obligation rather than a kindness. I left the conversation feeling oddly calm and empty instead of angry. Later that week, something else happened that made everything crystal clear. I had bought groceries again, clearly labeled, and asked Danielle directly to please remind the kids not to touch them. She said she would. 2 days later, I came home to find several items gone again. When I asked about it, she sighed and said she forgot and that I need to stop keeping score. That was it for me. I told her I am not keeping score. I am noticing patterns. I told her I feel like a guest in my own home, and that is not sustainable. She accused me of threatening to abandon her when she is already struggling. I told her I am allowed to take care of myself even if that inconveniences her. That night, I started looking at apartments. I did it quietly and without telling anyone, because I needed to know if I even had options. It turns out, I do. They are not glamorous, And they're smaller than what I have now, but the thought of having a space where my food and time and emotions are respected made me feel lighter than I have felt in months. When I told Danielle I was considering moving out, she broke down crying. She said she feels like she is losing her support system. She said the kids love having me there and asked how I could leave over something so small. That hurt because it confirmed she still sees this as a small thing and not the accumulation of many ignored boundaries. I told her I love her and the kids, but I cannot keep living in a situation where I feel invisible. I told her I am burning out and starting to resent her, and that is not healthy for anyone. I told her moving out does not mean I am abandoning her. It means I am choosing not to drown quietly. Since then, the house has been tense, but strangely more respectful. My food has not been touched. Danielle has been overly polite. It feels temporary and performative, like she is hoping if things calm down, I will change my mind. But I have already put in an application for a place, and I am waiting to hear back. Emotionally, I am all over the place. I feel guilty. I feel relieved. I feel sad about how things turned out. I also feel angry that it took me reaching a breaking point to finally be taken seriously. I keep thinking about how many times I swallowed my discomfort to keep the peace and how that peace was never really for me. What surprised me most is how much better I feel physically just knowing I am leaving. I am eating again. I am sleeping better. My chest does not feel tight all the time. That tells me a lot. Danielle and I are still talking, but it is surface level. I do not know what our relationship will look like once I move out. I hope we can repair it with some distance and healthier boundaries. I do not regret helping her when she needed it, but I regret ignoring my own needs for so long. I wanted to share this update because I needed to acknowledge that the food was never the real issue. It was about respect, autonomy, and being seen as a full person instead of just extra support. I am learning that choosing myself does not make me selfish, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Right now, I am focusing on finishing my certification, saving what I can, and preparing for this next chapter. I am scared, but also hopeful. Stories number 15. My neighbor might be the reason our house suddenly went up for sale. I am posting here because I feel like I am losing my grip on reality a little bit, and I need to know if this sounds as strange to other people as it does to me. My wife and I bought our house 5 years ago in what we thought was a quiet, boring, family-friendly neighborhood. It was not our dream home, but it was solid, affordable, and close to work and schools. We planned to stay long-term. Things were normal for the first couple of years. We waved at neighbors, kept to ourselves, and lived our lives. Then a man named Harold moved in next door. At first, he seemed like an average older guy. Polite, a bit awkward, very particular about his lawn. I did not think much of it. Over time, small things started to stand out. Harold always seemed to be watching, not in an obvious way at first, but in a way you notice after it happens enough times. If I stepped outside to take the trash out, his blinds would shift. If my wife Jenna and I sat on the porch, he would suddenly appear in his yard, pretending to trim something that clearly did not need trimming. I brushed it off as coincidence. Jenna noticed it too, but we both agreed it was probably harmless. Some people are just lonely or bored. We did not want to assume the worst. Then the comments started. Harold would make remarks about our house that felt slightly off. He would say things like, "That fence looks temporary," or "You might want to watch that tree. Roots can cause problems." Once he casually mentioned that the previous owners had a lot of trouble selling the place. That stuck with me because when we bought it, the house sold quickly. I asked him what he meant, and he just shrugged and said real estate is funny like that. At the time, I did not push it. About a year ago, our lives got busier. I started working longer hours, and Jenna picked up extra shifts. We were home less, and when we were home, we were tired. That is when the letters started appearing in our mailbox, not addressed to us, but addressed to the city. One day, we received a notice about a noise complaint. We were confused because we are quiet people. No parties, no loud music, nothing. A week later, there was a complaint about our trash cans being out too long, then one about overgrown weeds, which made no sense because I obsessively maintain our yard. Each time, the city inspector came out and found nothing wrong. He even joked once that whoever was calling must have too much free time. Still, it was stressful. It made us feel like we were being watched and reported. Jenna started feeling uncomfortable being home alone. She said she felt like someone was always paying attention to what we were doing. I tried to reassure her, but I felt it too. Every time we pulled into the driveway, I would see Harold standing near his window. Then one afternoon, I overheard him talking to another neighbor named Carol while they were outside. He did not see me. I heard him say, "That house has issues. Trust me, I would never buy it." Carol laughed and asked what he meant, and he lowered his voice. I could not hear everything, but I heard words like foundation, plumbing, and bad owners. None of that was true. We had inspections done when we bought the house, and we keep up with maintenance. I stepped outside, and the conversation immediately stopped. Harold smiled at me like nothing happened. I confronted him later that week. I kept it calm and asked if there was some issue with our house that we should know about. He looked genuinely surprised and said no, of course not. He said he just worries about the neighborhood and likes to warn people. Warn them about what? I asked. He said about investing wisely. After that conversation, things escalated. A for sale sign appeared in our yard while we were both at work. We came home and almost had a heart attack. We thought someone had made a terrible mistake. I called the real estate company listed on the sign, furious. They were confused too. They said they had been contacted by someone claiming to be the homeowner, asking about listing options. That is when the fear really set in. Someone had pretended to be us. The company removed the sign after verifying our identity, but the damage felt done. Within days, neighbors started asking if we were moving. Rumors spread fast. Some people seemed distant afterward, like they thought we were already halfway out the door. I noticed Harold watching the sign the entire time it was up. When it was taken down, he looked annoyed. I know that sounds paranoid, but I cannot describe it any other way. Shortly after that, we got another letter from the city, this time about a potential zoning issue. Again, it turned out to be nothing. The inspector finally admitted off the record that all the complaints were coming from the same anonymous source. He could not tell us who, but he raised his eyebrows in a way that told me everything. Jenna wanted to move at that point. She said the house did not feel like home anymore. She said every noise made her jump and every knock on the door made her anxious. I felt torn. I loved the house, but I loved my wife more, and I hated seeing her like that. The final straw came when a couple showed up at our door asking to see the house. They said they were told it was going on the market soon and wanted a sneak peek. They mentioned a neighbor who was very helpful and gave them lots of details about the problems with the place. They did not name Harold, but they did not have to. I told them there must be a misunderstanding and sent them away. That night, Jenna cried and asked why someone would want us gone so badly. I did not have an answer. We contacted a lawyer to ask what our options were. He said unless we could prove harassment or impersonation, there was not much we could do yet. He advised us to document everything. Dates, letters, conversations, all of it. We have been doing that ever since. I have a folder now filled with photos, copies of notices, and notes. I never imagined I would need something like that, just to live in my own house. Harold still acts friendly. He waves. He smiles. He asks how we are doing. Sometimes he casually mentions how the market is great right now for sellers. I do not respond anymore. I barely look at him. Jenna and I are now seriously discussing selling the house, not because we want to, but because we feel pushed. I hate that feeling. I hate the idea that someone else might win by making us uncomfortable enough to leave. I keep asking myself if I am overthinking this, if this is all coincidence and stress amplifying normal events. But deep down, I feel like this did not just happen. It feels orchestrated, slow and subtle, designed to make us doubt ourselves and our place here. I do not know what to do next. I do not know if staying is brave or foolish. All I know is that I no longer feel safe or welcome in a home we worked hard for, and I cannot shake the feeling that my neighbor has everything to do with it. Update: my neighbor might be the reason our house suddenly went up for sale. A lot has happened since I first shared this, and I honestly wish I could say it all turned out to be a misunderstanding. It did not. If anything, things became clearer and more unsettling at the same time. After the advice to document everything, I became almost obsessive about it. I started writing down dates, times, and exactly what happened, no matter how small it seemed. Jenna did the same. We saved every letter from the city, took photos of our yard whenever a complaint came in, and even started noting when Harold seemed to be watching us more closely than usual. The next complaint came sooner than expected. This time, it was about a supposed illegal home business being run out of our garage. That one actually made me laugh at first because our garage is barely organized enough to fit a car, let alone run a business. The city inspector came out again, looked around, and apologized. He told us quietly that whoever was reporting us was extremely persistent and detailed, almost like they were trying different angles to see what would stick. That same week, our doorbell camera picked up something strange. One afternoon, while we were both at work, Harold walked up onto our porch. He did not knock. He stood there for a moment, looked directly at the camera, and then reached down and straightened our welcome mat. It sounds harmless, but the way he looked around before walking back to his house made my skin crawl. When I showed the footage to Jenna, she went pale. We decided to take that footage to the lawyer. He watched it carefully and said on its own it did not prove much, but combined with everything else, it was starting to paint a pattern. He suggested we send a formal cease and desist letter if we believed Harold was behind the harassment. That idea terrified me. The thought of escalating things with someone who already seemed fixated on us made my chest tighten. But Jenna said she was already living in fear and could not keep going like this. We sent the letter. A week passed with nothing happening, and for a moment I thought maybe it worked. Harold stopped waving. He stopped trying to make small talk. He barely came outside at all. Jenna slept better for the first time in months. I let myself hope. Then a real estate agent showed up again. This time, it was different. The agent had paperwork. She said she had been in ongoing contact with someone who claimed to be representing us and insisted we were eager to sell quietly before listing publicly. She even had details about our mortgage balance and how long we had lived there. When I asked how she got that information, she looked uncomfortable and said it came from public records and conversations with a very knowledgeable neighbor. That was the moment my fear turned into something colder and sharper. This was not casual gossip or annoyance. This felt deliberate. We called the lawyer immediately. He contacted the agent and made it very clear that any further communication about selling our home without our consent would result in legal action. The agent apologized repeatedly and said she would cut contact with whoever had reached out to her. That night, Harold stood in his driveway and stared at our house for a long time. He did not pretend to be busy. He just stood there. I stood at our window and stared back. Neither of us moved. Eventually, he went inside. A few days later, the complaint stopped completely. No letters, no inspectors, nothing. The silence should have felt like relief, but instead, it felt like the calm after something dangerous. Jenna said she felt like we were waiting for the next move. We decided to install more cameras and motion lights around the house. It was expensive, but the peace of mind mattered. The first night they were up, one of the cameras caught Harold walking near the edge of our property line at almost midnight. He did not cross it, but he lingered there longer than made sense. When the motion light turned on, he walked away quickly. That footage was enough for the lawyer to advise us to file a police report, not to press charges, but to establish a record. The officer who came out was professional and took everything seriously. He did not accuse Harold of anything outright, but he did go speak to him. After that visit, Harold avoided us completely. We finally learned something that made all of this click. Carol, the neighbor I overheard him talking to months ago, came over one evening. She looked nervous. She told us Harold had mentioned years back that he wanted to buy our house when it first went on the market, but he was outbid. He apparently never let that go. She said she thought he was joking when he talked about how people never stay where they are not welcome. Hearing that sent a chill through me. Jenna and I had a long talk that night. We realized that even if things improved, the damage was already done. The house no longer felt like a safe place. Every good memory now had an edge to it. We hated that someone else had that power over us, but we also knew staying out of spite would not magically restore our sense of peace. We have not listed the house yet, but we are preparing to. This time, on our terms. With our own agent, our own timeline, and clear boundaries. It hurts to admit that we are likely leaving, but it also feels like taking control back in a way. As for Harold, he has gone quiet. Too quiet. He keeps to himself now, and I do not know if that is because he realized he went too far or because he is waiting. I try not to speculate anymore because it only feeds the anxiety. What I do know is this taught me how subtle harassment can be and how powerless it can make you feel in your own home. I never imagined that something like selling a house could be influenced by fear instead of choice. No matter what happens next, I am proud of us for standing up, documenting everything, and not letting ourselves be gaslit into thinking we were crazy. I still wish things had been different. I still wish we could have stayed and grown old in this house. But more than that, I want Jenna to feel safe again. Wherever we end up next, that will matter more than any square footage or neighborhood ever could. Stories number 16. My friend says I betrayed her after I told the rescue she planned to declaw the cat I helped her adopt. I am a 29-year-old woman living in the US, and this situation has completely wrecked a friendship I thought would last forever. I keep replaying everything, wondering if I crossed a line or if I did the only responsible thing I could live with. At this point, I genuinely do not know anymore, and that is why I am here. I have always been an animal person. I volunteer with shelters when I can, and I foster cats occasionally when they are overcrowded. I am not perfect, and I am not some hero, but animal welfare is something I take very seriously. My friend Brooke knows this. We have been friends since college and bonded over a lot of things, including our love for pets. She has always talked about wanting a cat, but said she was waiting until the time was right. Earlier this year, Brooke finally decided she was ready. She moved into a new apartment and wanted a companion. She asked me if I could help her look, because she knew I had experience with rescues and adoptions. I was honestly excited. I thought it would be fun and meaningful to help her find the right cat. We started visiting shelters together. We talked to volunteers. We looked at different cats and personalities. I explained things like adjustment periods, scratching behavior, enrichment, and how important it is to cat-proof your space instead of punishing natural instincts. Brooke nodded along and seemed receptive. She said all the right things. She talked about wanting to do it the right way. Eventually, we found a gray tabby named Oliver at a local rescue. He was about 2 years old and had been surrendered by a previous owner who said he was too energetic. He was playful, curious, and affectionate. He immediately warmed up to Brooke and climbed into her lap. She teared up and said he chose her. I will admit it was a sweet moment. The rescue was very clear about their policies. They do not adopt out cats to anyone who plans to declaw. They explained why in detail: pain, long-term behavioral issues, litter box problems, arthritis, and the fact that it is an amputation. Brooke agreed verbally and signed paperwork stating she would never declaw the cat. I was there when she signed it. The first couple weeks after the adoption seemed fine. Brooke sent me pictures and videos. Oliver looked happy and settled in. Then about a month later, Brooke started complaining. She said Oliver was scratching her couch and one of her dining chairs. I gave her advice. I suggested scratching posts, double-sided tape, trimming nails, and more playtime. She said she tried some of it, but it was not working fast enough. Then she made a comment that made my stomach drop. She said she did not understand why declawing was such a big deal and that maybe people were exaggerating. I immediately pushed back and reminded her of what it actually does to a cat. She said she knew, but she also paid a lot for her furniture and could not live with it being destroyed. I told her very clearly that declawing was not an option and that she had promised the rescue she would not do it. She rolled her eyes and said promises change when reality hits. That is when I realized we were not on the same page at all. A week later, she texted me saying she had booked a consultation with a vet to talk about declawing options. She said she wanted to at least hear what a professional had to say. I was furious and scared for the cat. I told her if she went through with it, she would be breaking her adoption contract. She said contracts are just paperwork and rescues never follow up. I did not sleep that night. I kept thinking about Oliver. I kept thinking about how trusting he was. I also kept thinking about the rescue volunteers who put so much care into placing him. The next morning, I called the rescue and explained the situation. I told them Brooke was talking about declawing and had scheduled a vet consult. I did not exaggerate or lie. I just told them what she said. They took it very seriously. Apparently, declawing is an immediate violation of their agreement. They contacted Brooke and told her that if she intended to declaw the cat, they would reclaim him. Brooke lost it. She called me screaming. She said I went behind her back. She said I had no right to interfere. She said I treated her like a criminal instead of a friend. She accused me of caring more about a cat than about her. She said the rescue was threatening to take Oliver away, and it was my fault. I told her I warned her, and that she signed a contract. I told her I could not stay silent, knowing what she planned. She said I should have trusted her to figure it out. I asked her how when she literally told me she booked a consultation. She said she never said she was definitely doing it. She said I jumped the gun. The rescue ultimately gave her a choice. Either commit in writing again to never declaw and attend a behavior consultation or surrender Oliver back to them. Brooke refused and said she felt attacked and judged. She surrendered Oliver. Now she hates me. She told our mutual friends that I stole her cat. She said I sabotaged her adoption. Some friends are on my side, and some think I should have stayed out of it. One friend told me it was not my place and that people should be allowed to make their own choices even if I disagree. I feel horrible and relieved at the same time. I miss the friendship. I hate that Brooke is hurting. But I also know that Oliver is safe and will never be mutilated for scratching furniture like a normal cat. What hurts the most is that Brooke keeps saying I betrayed her trust. I do not feel like I did. I feel like she betrayed the cat and the rescue and the values she claimed to share. But maybe I should have handled it differently. Maybe I should have tried harder to convince her instead of involving the rescue. I do not know if this friendship is salvageable. I do not know if I would even want it to be if this is how she handles responsibility. All I know is that if I had stayed silent and something irreversible happened to that cat, I would never forgive myself. I keep asking myself if loyalty to a friend should ever outweigh preventing harm to an animal that cannot speak for itself. I chose the cat, and I am standing by that choice, even though it cost me someone I once trusted deeply. Update: my friend says I betrayed her after I told the rescue she planned to declaw the cat I helped her adopt. It has been a few weeks since everything exploded, and I figured I should update because a lot has happened, and my feelings about it have shifted in ways I did not expect. After the rescue reclaimed Oliver, things were silent for a few days. Brooke blocked me on everything, and I heard nothing directly from her. Instead, I started getting messages from mutual friends, asking what really happened, because they were hearing very different versions of the story. Apparently, Brooke had been telling people that the rescue randomly took her cat after I made false accusations. That stung more than I thought it would. I did not defend myself aggressively, but I did explain the facts when asked. I showed a couple of close friends the messages where she talked about declawing and the vet consultation. Once people saw that, the tone shifted. Some apologized to me for doubting my intentions. Others stayed quiet. About a week later, the rescue reached out to me. They wanted to let me know that Oliver was doing well and had been placed in a foster home with someone experienced in high-energy cats. They did not send pictures for privacy reasons, but just hearing that he was safe made me cry. I did not realize how much of this I had been holding in until that moment. The rescue also told me something I did not know before. Brooke had apparently been pushing back on the no declaw policy even during the adoption process. She asked multiple questions about medical exceptions and loopholes. The rescue had hesitated but ultimately approved her because she agreed in writing and had a strong reference. Knowing that made me feel less like I overreacted and more like this was always heading in this direction. Brooke eventually unblocked me and sent me a long message. It was not an apology. It was more like a justification. She said losing Oliver was traumatic and humiliating and that she felt exposed and judged. She said she felt like I put animal activism over friendship and made a unilateral decision that affected her life. I responded carefully. I told her I was sorry she was hurting, but I was not sorry for protecting the cat. I told her I did not act out of spite or control, but out of genuine concern. I also told her that what hurt me most was how easily she dismissed something she had promised not to do and how she made me feel like I was crazy for taking it seriously. She replied that she still believes declawing is a personal choice and that rescues should not police people after adoption. That was the moment I realized there is a fundamental difference in our values. It was not just about one cat. It was about how we view responsibility toward beings that depend on us. Since then, we have not spoken. I do not know if we ever will. It is painful to accept that a friendship that lasted over a decade may be over because of this, but with some distance, I am also seeing things more clearly. There were other moments in our friendship where Brooke dismissed things that mattered to me or brushed off concerns if they inconvenienced her. I just did not want to see it at the time. A mutual friend told me Brooke is now talking about getting a kitten from a breeder because rescues are too controlling. That made my stomach turn, but it also confirmed that I made the right call. I cannot control what she does in the future, but I am relieved that Oliver is no longer in that situation. As for me, I am still volunteering and fostering when I can. The rescue thanked me again and said they wish more people would speak up instead of staying quiet to avoid conflict. Hearing that helped more than I expected. I still feel sad when I think about Brooke. I miss the version of her I thought I knew. But I sleep at night knowing I did not stay silent to keep the peace while an animal suffered. If that makes me the bad guy in her story, I can live with that. This experience taught me that sometimes doing the right thing costs you relationships, and that is a hard lesson. But it also showed me who I am willing to be when it really matters. Stories number 17. My neighbor's kid left his scooter blocking my driveway, and I took it. And I am old enough to be his grandmother, and I do not regret it. I never imagined I would be the kind of person admitting something like this on the internet, but here I am, and if nothing else, I need to. Say it somewhere, because the looks I have been getting lately are wild. I am 71 years old. I have lived in the same house, in the same quiet suburban neighborhood for over 35 years. I raised my children here. I watched them ride bikes on these sidewalks. I waved at neighbors and baked casseroles and kept my lawn trimmed. I am not some chaos-loving menace who wakes up looking for trouble. But I did steal a kid's scooter, and I am not sorry. Let me explain before everyone decides I am a villain. My name is Eleanor. I live alone now. My husband Paul passed away 8 years ago, and since then, my routines have become my comfort. I like my mornings quiet. I like my driveway clear because I still drive myself to the grocery store and to my doctor appointments. I like predictability. This neighborhood used to be exactly that. About a year ago, a new family moved in across the street. The parents are Jason and Nicole. They have 3 kids, loud kids, energetic kids, the kind of kids who leave bikes on lawns and chalk drawings everywhere and treat the entire block like a personal playground. I tried to be patient. I really did. I smiled. I waved. I told myself kids should be kids. The problem started with the scooters. At first, it was one scooter left near the curb. Then it was two. Then bikes. Then helmets. Then random plastic toys. Over time, it escalated until things were being left directly in my driveway. My actual driveway. Blocking where my car goes. The first time it happened, I knocked on their door and politely explained that I needed the driveway clear. Nicole apologized and said the kids must have forgotten. I accepted that. The second time I left a note. The third time I spoke to Jason. He laughed it off and said kids forget things. I said adults are supposed to remember. Nothing changed. I started tripping over things when I walked to get my mail. I had to get out of my car to move scooters just to pull into my own driveway. One morning, I nearly fell because a scooter was lying flat behind my car and I did not see it until my foot caught the handle. That scared me. A fall at my age is not a joke. I spoke to them again. This time, I was firm. I said I needed this to stop. Jason looked irritated and said the kids were just playing. Nicole said she would remind them. I went home feeling dismissed and small. 2 weeks later, I came home from a doctor appointment, and there it was again. A bright blue scooter laid directly across the entrance to my driveway. Not near it, not close to it, across it. I sat in my car for a long moment just staring at it. Something in me snapped. Not in a screaming way, in a very quiet way. I got out of my car, I picked up the scooter, I put it in my trunk, I drove into my driveway and went inside. That was it. That was the moment. I did not throw it away, I did not destroy it, I did not sell it. I put it in my garage behind some old boxes. I told myself I would return it when someone came looking. Days passed. No one came. The next day, Jason knocked on my door. He asked if I had seen a blue scooter. I looked him in the eye and said no. He frowned and said it must have been taken. I shrugged and said maybe someone thought it was abandoned. I will admit my heart was pounding, but I also felt something I had not felt in a long time. Control. Over the next week, the driveway stayed clear. Perfectly clear. No scooters, no bikes, no toys. It was like magic. I pulled in and out without stress. I walked to my mailbox without fear. The silence felt earned. A few days later, I overheard Jason complaining loudly to another neighbor about people stealing kids' things and how disrespectful it was. He said kids cannot have anything nice anymore. I stood in my yard watering my plants and said nothing. Eventually, Nicole came over. She asked again if I had seen the scooter. This time, she added that it was upsetting her son. I told her gently that I had warned them many times about leaving things in my driveway, and that perhaps this was a lesson in responsibility. Her face changed immediately. She accused me of threatening her kids. I told her I had done no such thing. I told her I simply expected my property to be respected. She left angry. Some neighbors have figured it out. I can tell by the looks. One woman named Carol told me quietly that while she could not say she approved, she understood. Another neighbor, Brian, said it was extreme. I told him so was blocking an elderly woman's driveway repeatedly after being asked to stop. The scooter is still in my garage. I know what some people will say, that I should have called someone, that I should have handled it differently. Maybe. But here's what actually happened. The behavior stopped. The message landed. I am no longer invisible. Do I feel a little guilty when I think about the kid missing his scooter? Yes, I am not heartless. But I also think about the fear I felt almost falling. I think about how many times I was ignored. I think about how easily this could have been avoided. I am old enough to know that being polite does not always work. Sometimes consequences speak louder than conversations. If they ever come to me calmly and acknowledge what they did and promise it will not happen again, I might return it. Maybe. Until then, my driveway is clear and my peace has been restored. I did not do this out of spite. I did it because I was tired of being treated like my safety mattered less than a toy. I am their grandmother's age, and I refused to be brushed aside. Update: my neighbor's kid left his scooter blocking my driveway, and I took it, and I am old enough to be his grandmother, and I do not regret it. I did not expect the situation to keep unfolding, but life rarely listens to expectations, and apparently neither do neighbors. Things stayed quiet for about 2 weeks after the scooter disappeared. My driveway remained clear. The kids still played, but they kept their things on their own side of the street. I started to think the lesson had landed, and that this would slowly fade into one of those unspoken neighborhood understandings. Then the police showed up. It was a weekday afternoon, and I was folding laundry when I heard a knock that was firmer than usual. I opened the door to find a young officer standing on my porch with a notebook in his hand. He was polite and respectful, and asked if he could ask me a few questions about a missing scooter reported by my neighbors. My heart jumped, but my face stayed calm. He asked if I had seen a blue scooter in the past few weeks. I told him truthfully that I had seen many scooters left around, but that I had not seen one recently. He asked if I had taken it. I said no. He nodded and wrote something down. He explained that technically it was a minor theft report, but that they were mostly trying to resolve a neighborhood dispute. He reminded me to call if I noticed anything unusual. Then he left. I stood there for a long moment after closing the door. I will not pretend that interaction did not shake me. It did. But what bothered me more than the police visit was the fact that Jason and Nicole escalated straight to that instead of having a real conversation with me. That told me everything I needed to know about how they saw me. Later that evening, Jason confronted me directly. He walked up my driveway without asking and said he knew I had the scooter. He said no one else would have taken it. He said I was punishing a child over a minor inconvenience. I told him to step off my property and lower his voice. I told him I had asked politely many times for the driveway to be kept clear and that those requests were ignored. He said, kids make mistakes. I said, adults correct them. He said I was being petty. I said I was being safe. He said he would not let this go. I said neither would I. Nicole came over the next day alone. This time she looked tired instead of angry. She said her son had been crying and asking why someone would steal his scooter. She said it was causing stress in their house. I listened. I truly did. Then I told her something I had not said out loud before. I told her I almost fell. I told her a fall at my age could put me in a hospital or worse. I told her that every time I asked for respect, I felt dismissed like I was just a cranky old woman complaining about kids. She went quiet. She apologized for that. Not for the driveway, not for ignoring me, for how she made me feel. That mattered more than I expected. I told her I did not want a war with my neighbors. I told her I wanted peace and safety. I told her I needed to know that my driveway would never be blocked again. She said she understood. She said they would be stricter with the kids and keep their things on their property. She asked if there was any way we could move forward. I did not immediately say yes. We stood there in silence for a bit. Then I told her the truth. I told her I had the scooter. Her eyes widened, but she did not yell. I told her I kept it because nothing else worked. I told her I did not damage it and that it was safe. I told her I was willing to return it under one condition, that this never happens again. She agreed immediately. No arguing, no excuses. That evening, she came back with her son. He could not have been more than 8. He looked nervous. Nicole told him to apologize to me. He said he was sorry for leaving his scooter in my driveway and that he did not mean to scare me. I nearly cried. I told him thank you for apologizing and that I hoped he understood why it was important to keep walkways clear. I went into my garage and brought the scooter out. It was exactly where I left it. I handed it back to him and he smiled like he had just gotten it brand new. That smile softened something in me I did not realize had hardened. Since then, things have been better. Not perfect, but better. The driveway has stayed clear. Jason avoids me, but that is fine. Nicole waves. The kids keep their things on their side. I feel like my space is finally being respected. Do I regret taking the scooter? Not really. Do I wish it had not come to that? Yes, absolutely. But sometimes being kind and being firm have to exist together. I learned that advocating for myself does not make me cruel. It makes me visible. I am still the woman who bakes casseroles and waves at neighbors. I am also a woman who refuses to be ignored when her safety is on the line. Both of those things can be true.